एक शेयर किया था कि द डे दैट फायरिंग इंसिडेंट हैपेंड ऑन द ट्रेन ऑन द सेम रूट माय मदर एंड माय सिस्टर वाज आल्सो ट्रैवलिंग ऑन द सेम रूट एंड एवरीथिंग. So
हम्म।
I mean, I I don't think anyone can you can understand what exactly that means. And मैंने स्पेसिफिकली अपने घर में बोला हुआ है that when you travel, don't take anything which even looks like non-veg during travel, because मैंने बोला you don't know कब क्या हो जाए. Things are not at all good, and of course they travel by like passenger and all those, but नहीं कह सकते कभी क्या हो जाए. तो these things, I mean, these are like in my family, these discussions happen. So अब तुम लोग के घर में क्या होता है तुम समझ सकते हो.
Long years ago, we made a trip with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge.
8 नवंबर 2016 की रात्रि को 12 बजे से
चीफ मिनिस्टर के लिए मेरा एक ही संदेश है कि वो राज धर्म का पालन करें.
हार्डवेयर वालों की सोच क्या होती है, हार्ड वर्क वालों की सोच क्या होती है?
अरे ये ना पंजाब की खुशबू.
एक्चुअली बहुत खराब लग रहा है, और उसमें क्या हो रहा है, दो तीन चीज हो रहा है इसमें. एक तो मेंटल स्ट्रेस बहुत बढ़ गया है इसमें. दूसरा बात है कि वो फिर फिजिकल हेल्थ पे भी बहुत आ रहा है, इन द सेंस के यू रीड द न्यूज एवरी डे, एंड एम्पैथी हम लोग में है, इसके लिए हम लोग को ज्यादा सोचते हैं शायद. लेकिन फिर वो फीलिंग्स, उनका फीलिंग सोच के वो ज्यादा ही होता है. जैसा सबसे ज्यादा डर अभी मेरे को इससे लगने लगा है, विजिलेंटीज का जो चक्कर है ना, उससे उसका. वो डेमोक्रेसी स्लाइडिंग तो बहुत बड़ा इशू है, जो डिस्कस करेंगे तो बहुत लंबा चलेगा जो हो रहा है. लेकिन रोड्स पे जो नॉर्थ बेल्ट में और सब जगह, अभी महाराष्ट्र में भी होने लगा है, सब जगह होने लगा है विजिलेंटीज का ना. तो वो एक लोगों का वीडियोस देख के उनका आंखों में जैसा ब्लड है, दे आर सो एंग्री. वो देख के ऐसा लग रहा है कि nobody is safe, मतलब state has given their power to these guys, and they are ruling the streets. प्लस मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन इतना ज्यादा बढ़ जाने से किसी से भी बातचीत नहीं कर सकते हैं. जो हम लोग समझते हैं, जो हम लोग रीड करते हैं, वो उनको समझ में नहीं आता है. पहला बात तो गुस्सा आता था, अभी तो गुस्सा आना भी मतलब खत्म हो गया वो सब. अभी relations are hardly. I was so social. I had school friends. I'm 60 years. I had school friends, college friends. The places I used to work in Bombay, वहाँ पे था. फिर जो मैं काम शुरू किया तभी के दोस्त थे. एंड अभी मेरे को I have one or two friends with whom I talk, and they understand our things. बाकी जो भी थे, जैसा ग्रुप था सोसाइटी में देर आर सो मेनी बिल्डिंग्स, बहुत बड़ा सोसाइटी है. तो कोविड टाइम पे ये जो हुआ था ना, कोविड में आए, वैसे तो सोसाइटी में किससे बातचीत ज्यादा नहीं होती थी, पर कोविड टाइम में जो फ्री होते थे तो नीचे बातें करते थे, तो तभी बहुत झगड़े हो गए मेरे. झगड़े मतलब वो पहला मैं सुनता था, फिर बहस करता था, फिर मेरे को टेम्पर आउट होके फिर इनके साथ चिल्लाना पड़ता था. तो उस टाइम से फिर आई स्टॉप गोइंग to the meetings, society meetings, and talking to the society people. Hardly there is anybody in the society I talk to. फ्रेंड सर्कल भी पूरा टूट गया है, सोशल सर्कल भी पूरा टूट गया है. तो अभी ये जो हमारा डिस्कॉर्ड चैनल है वो एक लाइफ सेवर जैसा बन गया है, तो उधर आके बातचीत करते हैं. वो एक स्पेस है, वो अच्छा स्पेस है. बाकी आई डोंट थिंक किसी से बातचीत कर सकते हैं अभी आज के टाइम में. और मेरे को बोला भी जाता है कि तुम कहाँ भी चलोगे सोशली, तो जब बात मत करना, तुम थोड़ा शांति से बैठना, पर वो शांति से बैठना होता नहीं है. फिर कोई बात करेगा तो फिर उस पर आई जस्ट बट इन, तो वो आदत जाता नहीं.
So my brother, he likes Pakistani music a lot. So पहले तो मैं कुछ नहीं बोलती थी, बट अभी जिस तरह की सिचुएशन है यूपी में, मैं और वो ऐसे मजाक बहुत करता रहता है. तो वो बोलता है मुझसे कि कहीं जा रहा हूँ तो बोल दूंगा मुस्लिम हूँ. तो पहले मैं मजाक में ले लेती थी, बट अभी मैं बिल्कुल मजाक में नहीं लेती हूँ, और बिल्कुल भी उसको बोल देती हूँ कि हाँ, कहीं भी ऐसा लगना नहीं चाहिए दैट यू आर अ फैन ऑफ समथिंग दैट इज रिलेटिंग टू पाकिस्तान. तो मतलब मुझे डर लगता है उसके लिए. पहले नहीं लगता था ऐसा 16-17 के आसपास, बट अभी मुझे डर लगता है कि ओपनली इतना बोलने की जरूरत नहीं है. जिस घर पे तो नहीं है, इतने ज्यादा लोग ही नहीं है, और जिस तरह से हम लोग सोचते हैं यार, उस तरह से है ही नहीं। सारे जितने भी फैमिली है सारे बीजेपी सपोर्टर ही है, तो हम तो बात ही नहीं करते रिलेटिव से अपने उतना। बट इन जनरल जैसे वो दोस्तों के बीच में है, लड़कों के साथ है कानपुर में, तो मुझे थोड़ा लगता है डर कि इतना ओपनली मजाक नहीं करने का कि इंडिया बेकार है या ऐसा कुछ। मतलब मुझे अजीब लगता है, थोड़ा अनसेफ लगता है इस तरह की वो मजाक करता है। तो ये चीज जैसा अभी सर ने बोला कि उनको लोग बोलते हैं ओपनली इतना अपने व्यूज नहीं बताना, वैसा ही मैं उसको बोलती रहती हूँ कि ज्यादा बताना नहीं किसी को।
वो बात तो है। मतलब इससे मेरे को याद आया कि हम लोग जब कोक स्टूडियो स्टार्ट हुआ था तो पाकिस्तानी कोक स्टूडियो को मतलब बहुत आराम से मतलब हम लोग अप्रिशिएट करते थे इन इवन इन पब्लिक। लेकिन आजकल मतलब एनीथिंग रिलेटेड टू लाइक पाकिस्तान और मतलब एनीथिंग दैट गोज अगेंस्ट द करंट डिस्कोर्स राइट, मतलब वो उसको मतलब बहुत सटली दबाने की कोशिश करते हैं इवन इन द फैमिली मतलब स्पेसेस। तो इफ यू से लाइक कि अरे वो बाबर इज द बेस्ट बैट्समैन, तो बोलेंगे अरे क्यों भाई, विराट कोहली को देखो। मतलब हम देख सकते हैं लेकिन देर इज द अदर साइड ऑफ इट राइट ऑल्सो। तो लाइक वही मुझे मतलब ऐसे याद आया कि मतलब कोक स्टूडियो की बात हो रही थी और मैंने मतलब बोल दिया कि पाकिस्तानी कोक स्टूडियो तो बहुत अच्छा होता है यार। एंड देन लाइक नहीं नहीं ऐसा क्या है, हमारा भी कर्नाटिक म्यूजिक सुनो तुम। मतलब this is like an actual conversation that happened, which is funny and sad that this is the times we live in.
तो आपने ये भी नोटिस किया है क्या कि अपनी सोशल सर्कल्स या सोशल इवेंट्स पे जाना भी कम हो गया है?
I had a best friend in school, since 8th standard, and she was a really good friend. लेकिन ये जितना भी जैसे जैसे ये मोदी 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 एंड बीजेपी बढ़ता गया, एंड वी स्टार्टेड हैविंग रियली हीटेड आर्ग्यूमेंट्स, एंड उसके बाद से मैंने बोलना ही बंद कर दिया। लाइक शी स्टार्टेड क्राइंग वंस कि ऐसे कैसे बोल दिया। तो मतलब फिर मैंने बोलना ही बंद कर दिया बिल्कुल उसके बारे में, और अब तो वो फ्रेंड भी नहीं है। तो
Hmm.
and it's hard to be friends with people who it's not the problem that they are BJP supporters, the problem that they are not okay with listening to your point of view। उनको बस ये है कि जो मुझे पता है वही सही है, सुनना ही नहीं है कोई और क्या बोल रहा है। तो it's hard to be friends with them।
Hmm.
Yeah, that's all।
नहीं नहीं, मैं वही बोल रहा था कि कमिंग फ्रॉम अपर कास्ट प्रिविलेज्ड सोसाइटी, राइट, मैं जो सोसाइटी से आता हूँ, तो जब मैं अभी सोशल इवेंट्स पे जाता हूँ या सोशल सर्कल्स में हैंग आउट, तो द टॉक इज सो हॉरिबली कन्वोल्यूटेड। यही सब चीजें डिस्कस होती हैं, जैसे पाकिस्तान बुरा है और ये सब। तो इसलिए मैंने अभी एक सोशल इवेंट्स और रिलेटिव्स के साथ हैंग आउट करना ही छोड़ दिया। डोंट इवन गो टू विजिट देयर प्लेसेस, या whenever I go back home, I make it a point to something, I put my foot down and meet them anymore.
Definitely. डिस्कोर्स तो इस तरह मतलब खत्म हो चुका है हमारी मतलब इवन विद माय फ्रेंड्स एंड द फैमिली की जब अब मुझे डर लगता है बातें करने में। मैं आई डोंट वांट टू टॉक अबाउट पॉलिटिक्स बिकॉज आई हैव कट ऑफ सो मेनी पीपल फ्रॉम माय लाइफ जस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ दिस। बिकॉज आई नो कि अगर मैं कुछ बात शुरू करूंगा तो बात किधर जाने वाली है। एंड आई थिंक एनीबडी लिसनिंग to this conversation will understand ki what I mean by that. Because I don't really want to say it out loud. There is just so much hate. There's just one political मतलब अलाइनमेंट जिसकी बातें सुनी जाती हैं, जिनका मतलब रोज पूजा की जाती है ऑलमोस्ट। तो इट्स लाइक यू कैन नॉट से एनीथिंग एंड देन वेरी सटली देयर आर थिंग्स लाइक अरे वो तो ऐसे होते हैं, उनसे बातें नहीं करनी चाहिए, वो उनके कनेक्शंस वहां वहां से होते हैं। मतलब वेरी मतलब आई डोंट हैव वर्ड्स टू मतलब कि इतना हेट कैसे भर गया है कि तुम किसी भी रैंडम इनोसेंट पर्सन को मतलब यू जस्ट हेट टू लाइक से थिंग्स लाइक दैट।
हाँ, तो मैं बता दूं, लाइक आई एम फ्रॉम द कम्युनिटी which no one wants to belong to currently in India. Okay, so basically the thing is, अगर इंसिडेंट क्या बोलूं, मेरे साथ तो अभी रिसेंटली मैंने एक शेयर किया था कि द डे दैट फायरिंग इंसिडेंट हैपेंड ऑन द ट्रेन ऑन द सेम रूट, माय मदर एंड माय सिस्टर वाज आल्सो ट्रैवलिंग on the same route and everything. So I mean, I I I don't think anyone can you can understand what exactly that means. And मैंने specifically अपने घर में बोला हुआ है that when you travel, don't take anything which even looks like non-veg, ड्यूरिंग ट्रेवल, बिकॉज मैंने बोला यू डोंट नो कब क्या हो जाए, थिंग्स आर नॉट एट ऑल गुड, एंड ऑफ कोर्स दे ट्रेवल बाई लाइक पैसेंजर एंड ऑल दोस, बट नहीं कह सकते कभी क्या हो जाए। तो दिस थिंग, आई मीन दीज आर लाइक इन माय फैमिली, दीज डिस्कशंस हैपन। तो अब तुम लोग के घर में क्या होता है तुम समझ सकते हो वेयर वी आर। दोस्ती के बारे में 2014 से देखो, दोस्त अभी भी मेरे हैं, बट द थिंग इज आई जस्ट बीइंग सेपरेटेड फ्रॉम ऑलमोस्ट एवरीवन, बिकॉज ज्यादातर या तो वो उसी लीनिंग है या फिर वो खुल के फेसबुक में उस बारे में बात करेंगे। बट जब आप उनसे मिलोगे तो हाँ ठीक है, अच्छी बात है, बट एक फियर फैक्टर तो रहता है ना, दैट दिस पर्सन ऑलवेज जनरलाइज मी इन अ वन वे। लाइक मैंने अभी रिसेंटली एक दोस्त से बोला कि मैं यार मेरा मन नहीं है मैरिज करने का, ऐसा, वो पुराना दोस्त है एंड ही इज लाइक कोर संगी टाइप ऑफ। तो वो बोला अरे ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है, तुम शादी कैसे नहीं कर सकते हो, तुम लोग तो शादी, मतलब ही इज लाइक ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है, दैट काइंड ऑफ मेंटेलिटी। एंड द सेम थिंग हैपन लाइक वेयर मैं काम करता हूँ जहाँ पे, वहां सबसे ज्यादा मैंने कई जगह फेस किया है। सो मोस्टली जहाँ भी मैंने काम किया है, जिस भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में, यहाँ पे इन दोज टीम्स और एरिया आई वाज द ओनली मुस्लिम, and most of the other people never have introduced to how a Muslim persons look like or what actually we wear। तो उनका बहुत कई बार अजीब सा वो होता है that you don't actually look like Muslim। एंड सेकेंड थिंग इज, अगर मैं जैसे, एक मेरा फ्रेंड था पिछले टीम में, दैट पर्सन इज लाइक व्हेन आई मोस्टली आई गो, लाइक मैं ऑफिस में जाता था अगर कैंटीन में खाने, तो मैं बिरयानी या कुछ नॉन वेज खाता था। तो ही सेड क्या तुम घर में हर दिन नॉन वेज खाते हो, अच्छा क्या कितने कहाँ पे नॉन वेज खाते हो, मतलब इज लाइक उसके दिमाग में वो भरा हुआ है दैट दीज पीपल ईट सर्टेन थिंग, दे डू सर्टेन थिंग, एंड इन देयर होम आल्सो दे डू सर्टेन थिंग। तो वो जो बोल रहा था वो नहीं बोल रहा था, द थिंग व्हाट ही गेट फीडेड बाई। एंड अभी रिसेंटली मैं जहाँ हूँ वहां पे एक गुजराती दो लोग मेरे साथ काम करते हैं, तो एंड दे वर लाइक प्योर वेज, कि हम बस वेज खाते हैं। तो मैं कुछ दिन हम लोग गए साथ में, मैंने नॉन वेज वगैरह खाया। तो हाँ ठीक है, मतलब उनका एक्सप्रेशन समझ में आ रहा था, दे आर नॉट लाइक लाइकिंग और सब, तो मैंने फिर अवॉइड कर दिया, मैं नहीं जाता हूँ उन लोगों के साथ। एंड एक दिन क्या हुआ इंसिडेंट, मैंने एक च्युइंगम खरीदा, तो मैंने बोला तुम्हें भी खाना है क्या च्युइंगम, तो उसने बोला कि ये वेज है ना मुझसे। तो आई मीन यू अंडरस्टैंड, दे डोंट टेल you directly, but yeah, they give you a lot of hints that you understand what exactly they think about you।
तो कैन आई आस्क यू अ क्वेश्चन, हडवर भाई?
Yes।
तो लोग मेरे से क्या बोलते हैं ना, जब हम इस बारे में बात करते हैं उनसे, तो लोग बोलते हैं अरे ये हमेशा से ऐसे ही रहता है, आजकल इतना इतना ओवर सेंसिटिव होने की जरूरत नहीं है तुम्हें। तो इज इट ट्रू कि हमेशा से ही ऐसा था कि?
तो हमेशा से, मैं ये बोलूंगा कि हमेशा से ये चीज इस तरीके से नहीं था, बट था। मैं बताता हूँ इंसिडेंट। इवन लाइक माय ग्रैंडफादर्स टाइम, लाइक फ्रॉम 50 years बैक ऑल्सो, मेरे जो दादा थे उनके एक अच्छे दोस्त थे, वो अग्रवाल थे, एंड बहुत क्लोज रिलेशनशिप थी, बट सब कुछ था एकदम क्लोज था, शादी वादी में जाना। बट हमारे घर से अगर कोई खाना उनके घर जाएगा, दे विल नॉट एक्सेप्ट दैट।
हम्म।
तो इट इज नॉट लाइक, एंड सेकंड इंसिडेंट मैं बताता हूँ, 2002 का जब राइट हुआ था गुजरात में, आई एम फ्रॉम, सो मेरे घर के मतलब मेरा घर हिंदू मेजोरिटी एरिया में है, तो वहां पे स्पेसिफिकली मेरे घर पे जय श्री राम के पेंटिंग, वो दीवार पे पेंट किया गया था, मतलब एज अ मार्किंग।
हम्म।
तो आई एम सीइंग दिस फ्रॉम लॉन्ग बैक, एंड इवन माय ग्रैंडफादर सेड लाइक, क्योंकि अभी जो छुआछूत हम लोग बोलते हैं कि जो ये दलित और एस सी आता है, छुआछूत वाज आल्सो विद द मुस्लिम कम्युनिटी, एंड स्पेसिफिकली इफ यू आर नॉट लाइक वेरी हाई इन्फ्लुएंस्ड फैमिली।
राइट।
तो ये मेरा मतलब, और बहुत सारे इंसिडेंट है डे टू डे होते रहते हैं, मतलब ऑफ कोर्स मैं कहीं भी जाता हूँ, यानी इवन व्हेन आई गो ट्रेन, आई डोंट वांट टू आइडेंटिफाई माई सेल्फ कि सामने वाले को पता चल जाए, इसलिए नहीं कि वो कुछ करेगा, बट द थिंग इज अगर मौका आया तो सबसे पहले वो मेरे साथ ही करेगा। यू गेटिंग दैट थिंग, दैट इज द की
हम्म।
थिंग विच मेक्स मी अफ्राइड, बिकॉज आजकल I can't believe anyone like who will turn into monster when I don't know, because one thing is clear, जो वो बोलते हैं ना कि फर्स्ट दे कम फॉर देम देन दे, इन दैट लिस्ट आई एम इन द फर्स्ट। तो आफ्टर मी व्हाटएवर हैपन, आई मीन इट डजंट मैटर, अ डेड मैन डजंट मैटर फॉर एनीवन, एंड फॉर डेड मैन नथिंग मैटर्स। जो तुम लोग जिसके लिए डिस्कस कर रहे हो, मैं उसको डे टू डे मेरी रियलिटी है वो। सो इवन इफ आई टेल और नॉट, एंड बिलीव मी, मैं मेरे लिए सामने लोग नहीं बोलते, बट मेरे पीठ पीछे ये जरूर बोलते हैं कि हाउ दिस पर्सन एक्चुअली रीच टिल हियर, because they don't actually फील कि मुस्लिम इतने ऊपर तक या किसी बड़े औहदे ऐसी पोस्ट तक पहुंच सकते हैं, बिकॉज देयर इज नो वन लिटरली। मतलब मैं तुम्हें बता रहा हूँ, जब दिवाली आती, ये आती, एवरीवन विश एवरीथिंग, बट व्हेन फेस्टिवल ईद और एनीथिंग कम्स, नो वन इवन रियलाइज दैट एनीथिंग हैपेंड like that happen. I mean, it's not from me since I'm in IT. I'm seeing this.
राइट।
या सो आई गेस मैंने पता नहीं बताया कि नहीं बताया, बट मैं जहाँ काम करता हूँ ऑफिस में, मतलब मोस्टली सब इस्लामोफोबिक ही है। सो फॉर एग्जांपल मेरे ऑफिस में वहाँ पे अजान बजता रहता है, तो एक लीड के मुंह पे ऐसे घिन जैसा मैंने नोटिस किया था एक बार, और कुछ उसने मम्बल भी किया था। उसके फेस से पता चल जाता है कि भाई इसको नहीं पसंद आ रहा। और मतलब आयरनी हो जाती है कि लोग गाना सुनते हैं, ये कौन सा, ये जो हल्का हल्का सुरूर है, और उसी टाइम पे इस्लामोफोबिक कमेंट कर देते हैं। मतलब बहुत ही अजीब है, मतलब क्यों करते हैं ऐसा। दूसरा, हाँ ये एक बार, हाँ एक कलीग के पास गया था मेरे पास सारी ऑफिस स्टोरीज ही है अभी। और वो कुछ देख रहा था, मतलब मुझे उसका कुछ काम था, एंड यूट्यूब पे देख रहा था कि भाई कैसे पॉपुलेशन बढ़ रहा है, उनका घट रहा है, हमारा घट रहा है, उनका बढ़ रहा है। ये सारे वीडियोस देख रहा था। एंड और मेरे को कितना 10 हॉलीडेज मिलता है पूरे ईयर में, और उसमें से एक ईद का भी रहता है। तो लाइक उसका भी डिस्गस्ट है कि भाई इनको ज्यादा क्यों मिला, शायद ईद के 2 रहते हैं हम लोग को हॉलीडेज। इस बात का भी डिस्गस्ट रहता है लोगों को कि भाई इतना क्यों हो रहा है ये। कैंटीन में बैठते हैं, तो अभी रिसेंटली कैंटीन में बैठा था मैं, तो सुन रहा था कि ये नूह में वायलेंस हुआ था हरियाणा में। तो लाइक इन शॉर्ट्स पे कुछ न्यूज आ रही थी, तो इन शॉर्ट्स पे बोलते हैं कि इन शॉर्ट्स वाले हिंदुओं को क्यों नहीं दिखाते इतना, ये सिर्फ उनका ही क्यों दिखाते रहते हैं। मतलब पूरा डिस्कोर्स ऐसा है। और इन सब के बीच अ, एक मतलब कपल है हमारे कंपनी में ही, एंड इंटरफेथ कपल है। तो लाइक इट्स शॉकिंग के इन सब के बीच भी लोग मतलब ढूंढ लेते हैं। मतलब मुस्लिम्स वर्क इन माय कंपनी, मतलब बहुत कम है, लाइक रेशियो बहुत कम है, बट स्टिल इंटरफेथ कपल है, तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कुछ फेथ है। बट ओवरऑल तो सैडनेस ही है। और मैं जहाँ जाता हूँ वहां तो बिल्कुल नहीं, अगर सरकार चेंज भी होगी ना यहाँ पे, यहाँ पे तो कोई उम्मीद नहीं।
द सोसाइटी हैज ब्रोकन इनटू सो मेनी पीसेस कि अब मतलब सरकार चेंज हो ना हो, उसको जेल बैक करने में मतलब इट विल टेक अ लॉट ऑफ एफर्ट एंड टाइम.
People are talking about, like, I have both in college and at my workplace. At my workplace, like, Islamophobia wala flavor to thoda control kar lete hain. They are not so outright about it. We are in like an MNC, so they are not so upfront about it. Because when we joined, everyone said that, oh no, you all try to speak in English as much as possible, and it's like a very multicultural workplace. So everyone is like very, very, so like very like careful not to say anything. But as long as the topic moves out of something of the scope of like India, and उनकी जो कमेंट्री आनी शुरू होती है फिर कि like we were before that, I want to just say in college especially, somebody who like I befriended in college turned out to be like so hardcore of like like Hindu right wing, and we reconnected sometime later over WhatsApp. And the thing is that I just could not help myself without like clarifying that does he hold the same beliefs still? And he like did, and it was very strange because जैसे आप बोल रहे हो ना कि इतनी हेट कैसे बढ़ गई है, इट इज एग्जिस्टेंशियल फॉर देम. इट इज लाइक हाँ, या तो हम बचेंगे या तो ये लोग बचेंगे. दैट इज द नैरेटिव that not just him, but he was like telling that I'm part of groups where I act like I contribute a part of my salary to these groups every month. These are not political mainstream groups. These are like underground, like extremist groups which are like preparing for like a day of the rope kind scenario in India. Okay? And so their narrative is fully like, yeah, to ye bache. And he's like, so I asked, okay, what is the root of this? He's like, it is just self-preservation. According to me, they are going to kill me. And that is something that how do you logic someone out of that? That's like a existential belief. They have built their entire life around that. Yeah. But right now, the thing, what my perspective is that, so these are like, okay, still fringe, but the general thing with like people in the middle, people at the center, like the center of the bell curve people. These people, for them, what has happened in India, especially, that a lot of right-wing ideas have become common sense. So for them, so what happens is, a normal conversation is going on. Let's say something comes up which is slightly political in the topic. Somebody will express a right-wing opinion. Everybody will start talking about it. If I'm part of the conversation, I'll start introducing some progressive left-wing perspective into it. Then they're like, नहीं यार हमें ना politics discuss करना अच्छा नहीं लगता है इतना. Let's not discuss politics here. Like they got to say whatever they wanted, right? I think this is what I'm noticing. The right-wing ideas in India, especially, have become common sense. And when we start introducing the more critical thinking, because that's what right-wing offers, very simplistic answers for everything. Why is the nation in decline? Like if you talk about Modi, then the nation is not in decline. But in general, the nation is decline because Muslims are increasing. Okay, everything is a fault of Muslims. Again, that person from my college friend group, he was like, dude, you tell me anything bad that has happened in the history of the world, and I will tell you how that was related to Muslims. And like I was like, this is like JQ posting just but for Muslims. Right? This is like everything bad is a grand conspiracy by Muslim people, and they but they what they do is they will hiding power level kind of thing. They will never outright come and say it. He was saying to me because I was his old friend, but in a general setting they will just hint towards these things. Yeah, तुमने ऐसा सोचा है, like have you looked into that? They have these sets of conspiracy theories, right? Like Hitler was not planning to actually commit the Holocaust unless he met like the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem or some nonsense.
Yeah.
Okay, it is a thing. Okay, it is a conspiracy theory given a wind by who's the PM of Israel right now? I'm sorry, sir.
Netanyahu.
Netanyahu, yeah. Netanyahu has repeated this conspiracy theory on the world stage. So like so that sort of this Overton window shift has happened. And I think government, what does the government change even represent? Because if the India coalition comes, they don't have any ideological thrust. They are just anti BJP. That's it. Like they don't have an ideology of their own. They just represent things going back to when everything was like still corrupt and still all very like zero trust in the government. But still, like at least dissidence was possible. So you can have a little dissidence as a treat, but no real like vision for the future.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to share.
सीधी बात है, मुझे डर लगता है इवन जहां मैं रहता हूँ यहाँ भी मैं किसी भी तरीके से, इवन मेरी वाइफ भी जैसे कुछ गाना सुन रही है या फिर इस तरीके का कुछ जो इट इज लाइक मोर इस्लामिक और लाइक ताजदार हरम या ऐसा कुछ चला है, तो मैं बोला प्लीज इसमें मत कर, क्योंकि दूसरे कुछ भी कर रहे हैं, बट आई मीन you will become the target if someday something happen. They have by default in their mind that this is a person which you have to target. So अभी क्या है ना, अभी we are in a phase where target identification and target. So I don't want to be, even though like चाहते हैं सब है लोग, but I don't want to be a that kind of person कि I can't, I mean what I can say, मतलब मैं कुछ बोल ही नहीं सकता. It's all about fear. Simple. I have a fear. And I fear that if someday someone turns on me and something happened to me, I will not get justice. Just leave justice. I won't be accounted for death. I mean, this is truth. You were not agreeing. So मैं बहुत पहले बोलता था कि रेडियो रवांडा is a truth which will come to India, and many people that time disagree with me that ये नहीं होगा. अरे मैं बोलता हूँ आज की वो चीज होगी that लोग बोलेंगे कि ये है नया, like टीवी नोएडा or something like that. रेडियो रवांडा will be thing of past. बिकॉज जहां हम लोग जा रहे हैं दैट इज द वे, एंड सरफेस पे कुछ और अंदर कुछ और. सी दे नीड एन एनिमी एंड दे हैव एन एनिमी, और वो कंसिस्टेंट हर जगह उनके लिए एग्जैक्टली बराबर है. इधर इट मणिपुर और कुछ भी, इवन मणिपुर में देखा वो दो लोग के बीच में था स्टार्टिंग में क्या चला, वो एक मुस्लिम है जिसके देखा था ना वाला एक नैरेटिव अलग टाइप का. तो दिस इज द थिंग, लड़ाई किसी की भी हो कुछ भी हो एज, और हर कोई एक बात ये देखा है ना कि नेहरू को हर किसी को मुस्लिम क्यों बनाना चाहता है. सो व्हाट इफ समवन बिकम मुस्लिम, it means automatically you become anti-national. You automatically become a degraded person. Automatically you become someone that has no accountability if someone do anything to you, like that kind of situation. Why everyone wants to prove other as a Muslim? ये बेसिक नैरेटिव तो इसी में छुपा हुआ है ना, जो भी अपना एनिमी है। राहुल को क्यों ये बोलते हैं, या जवाहरलाल नेहरू क्यों? बेसिकली ये है कि क्योंकि एक बार आपने मुस्लिम साबित कर दिया, देन फिर वो तो इंसान ही नहीं है ना। पर्सन इज नो लॉन्गर ह्यूमन, ही इज अ एविल डेविल, ही केम फ्रॉम समवेयर एंड वी हैव टू टेक द, लाइक जो पास्ट में हुआ उसका बदला लेना है हमें।
So that guy, his name was something like Hindu name, and then he started driving, and we started talking there, and then he realized I was not some Islamophobic person or someone BJP supporter, because I at that point I was okay with discussing things with strangers. Then he told me that this account is registered on my friend's name, but I run the cab. So that's why on Ola it shows his name, right? I mean, at that point I didn't understand the gravity of this, but now that I realize, he said that people cancel when they say Muslim name in cab. And other experience, it's nothing like this, but it's my fear from someone from BJP. So I took a cab from Lucknow to Kanpur, and that guy was very openly Hindu extremist, and he was like, I don't need to wear seat belt, I don't need to follow signals. मेरे रिलेटिव जो हैं वो यहाँ प्रधान हैं, और मेरे रिलेटिव जो हैं वो इन एमपी को जानते हैं, इसको जानते हैं. And I really felt scared. आप मास्क क्यों लगा के बैठे हो? आप उतार दो मास्क. आपका रिलेशनशिप स्टेटस क्या है? कहाँ रहते हो? I mean, it's more unprofessional, I would say. But again, I would have said what I was thinking. But he kept mentioning that I am in a political family, or thoda BJP se related. I just kept silent. I didn't say anything. I felt kind of scared. थोड़ा जो politics से related लोग रहते हैं. Otherwise, I confront people. I have never had this kind of experience in Bangalore, क्योंकि लोग यहाँ बहुत प्रोफेशनल है. इनकम कोई भी हो, पीपल आर प्रोफेशनल, मतलब कैब रैपिडो कुछ भी है. बट यूपी में व्हेन यू टेक अ कैब, दे वांट टू नो अबाउट योर फैमिली, पूरा ही हिस्ट्री. तो इट्स वेरी वियर्ड. हाँ, बट हाँ, political point of view से he told me that he's from BJP or something. I just didn't say anything. I just kept nodding, and I didn't take my mask off. I was so scared of him. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And
I mean,
yeah,
it's
that
not even.
family.
Go ahead.
So family members being Islamophobic, I don't care about other people, because बात ही नहीं करते हम तो. But मम्मी मेरी ये कोविड के टाइम पे कॉलेज बंद हो गए थे, तो घर पर जब थी, और आई वॉज वेरी एक्टिव ऑन ट्विटर, मैं सब देखती रहती थी, तो मैं वही मम्मी को बताती रहती. तब मुझे पता चला हाउ हेटफुल शी इज. इतना ज्यादा. एंड शी does not have any instance जिसमें उनको कोई नुकसान हुआ हो. And her customers are Muslim, and I ask her कि उन्होंने कुछ गलत किया क्या, तो she is like, नहीं, वो सिर्फ अच्छे हैं, जिनसे मैं बात करती हूँ सिर्फ वो अच्छे हैं, बाकी जो जिनको मैं नहीं जानती हूँ वो खराब हैं, वो सारे प्लान कर रहे हैं, वो सारे ऐसे रहते हैं, वो गंदे रहते हैं, ये करते हैं, वो करते हैं. बट जिनसे मैंने बात करी है वो तो अच्छे हैं. तो लेकिन वही है कि जिनसे मैंने बात करी उनकी वजह से मैं पूरी कम्युनिटी को अच्छा नहीं मानूंगी. जो मैंने सुना है टीवी पर वो ही सच है. वो ऐसे ही करते हैं, यही करते हैं. और ऐसे स्पेसिफिक दुकानें रहेंगी जहाँ पे उनको ट्रस्ट है कि ये मुस्लिम की दुकान है, ऐसा तो सामान वहीं से लेना है, क्योंकि ये सामान की क्वालिटी मुझे पता है अच्छी होगी, क्योंकि यहाँ से बहुत पहले से सामान आ रहा है. बट शी विल कंटिन्यू विद द हेट. She will trust the shopkeeper and her customers, everything, but with the hate. So I really didn't get it. बहुत सारा ऐसे, इतनी ज्यादा लड़ाई, इतना ज्यादा झगड़ा इस सब बातों पे, क्योंकि I cannot stand the thought कि मेरे घर में ही someone is so hateful बिना किसी रीजन के भी. ऐसा नहीं कि एक बार ऐसा हुआ हो कि हम कहीं फंस गए हो, कुछ नहीं, कोई लेना देना नहीं, कोई प्रूफ ही नहीं है इस बारे में, लेकिन बहुत ज्यादा हेट. मैं और मेरा भाई तो फिर हमने बात करना, 2 साल तक खूब लड़ाई हुई, फिर बात करना बंद कर दिया, क्योंकि उसका कोई पॉइंट नहीं है, उनको चेंज करके कुछ होगा भी नहीं. एंड वो ऐसा इतना ज्यादा मेंटली स्ट्रेसफुल हो गया, इतना बहुत ज्यादा ही दूर तक चली गई बात, तो फिर मैंने बात ही करना बंद कर दिया। पॉलिट उनसे डिस्कस ही नहीं करती कुछ। क्या ही डिस्कस करेंगे जब कोई लॉजिक के साथ बात ही नहीं करना चाहता। और यूजुअली पेरेंट्स आर नॉट ओके विद यू हैविंग योर ओन पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू। उनका ये है कि मैं बड़ा हूं तो मेरे को ही पता है सब कुछ,
या
तो
या
थोड़ा ये भी रहता है।
आई मीन
तो या
दैट
ऐसा
रियलाइजेशन कि आपकी फैमिली में ही नियो नाजीज हैं, इट्स अ वेरी
यस, शी इज ओके विद पीपल डाई। हाँ मतलब वो तो मतलब इतना वही आई कैन नॉट एक्सप्लेन हाउ मच हेट शी हैज, एंड विदाउट एनी रीजन। कोई रीजन नहीं है, कुछ है ही नहीं उनका अपना। तो
वो
या
राज ने बोला था ना एक बार, घर के संगी।
वायलेंस जो है वो स्टेट का होता है यूजुअली, पावर। तो अभी वो है नहीं। अभी वो है तो है, वो ऐसा नहीं कि वो नहीं है, स्टेट के पास भी पावर है। क्योंकि आप देख सकते हो कि जो भी ट्वीट पुराने पुराने भी हैं उनके ऊपर भी अभी कैसा केसेस आ रहा है। और जो लॉज हैं, मतलब जैसा आप लोग ने देखा कि सीए में यूनिवर्सिटी के बच्चे जब भी प्रोटेस्ट करने गए तो उनको लाइब्रेरी में कैसा पीटा गया, वो पावर तो है स्टेट को, लेकिन उन्होंने फिर और एक अपना दे दिया है पैसे। जो सपोर्ट है वो इनको विजिलेंटिस ग्रुप से, बजरंग दल, और जो फियर अभी बोल रहे हैं ना हम लोग, जो फियर है ऑन रोड फियर होता है, जो जैसा हार्डवर्क बोल रहे थे। और ऑनलाइन भी फियर हो रहा है, ऑनलाइन भी उनका है, ट्रोलिंग का, गाली देने का, डीएम में आके आपको माँ बहन की गालियां सुनाए। फिर आप अगर अपने नाम से आते हो सोशल मीडिया पे तो आपको ट्रैक कर सकते हैं। प्लस ये जो विजिलेंटिस का है, ये मेरे को ऐसा लग रहा है कि ये लोग कॉन्फ्लिक्ट पे ही ये लोग का सर्वाइवल है। जो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट, डेली कॉन्फ्लिक्ट इनके जो नहीं होगा ना, तो इनका सर्वाइवल ही नहीं है। तो हर एक कोई ना कोई बात पे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट करना, कभी इकोनॉमिक रीजंस पे उनको चिल्लाना, कभी त्योहार के टाइम मीट नहीं खाना, और मीट की दुकानें बंद करवा देना, 9 9 दिन, 10 10 दिन, वो अपना राज चलाना। जो जो रोड पे वो लोग चलाते, जो जिसको स्टेट भी मना नहीं करता है। नहीं तो स्टेट का काम है उनको बोले कि तुम ये नहीं कर सकते, दिस इज नॉट अलाउड, लेकिन स्टेट इज लुकिंग द अदर वे। तो वो ग्रुप्स भी उन्हीं के हैं, वो ब्रांचेस भी उन्हीं के हैं, वो रूलिंग पार्टी का ही ब्रांचेस में से आए हैं वो लोग। तो उनको वो पूरा सपोर्ट है। और वो मतलब, तो अभी ऐसा हो गया है कि यू नो एक फियर फैक्टर तो है, लेकिन इसके साथ जो मेंटल कंडीशन हो रहा है ना, जो लोग हम लोग एम्पथी जैसा ज्यादा दिखाते हैं, तो अभी कोई एंटरटेनमेंट जैसा हमारे लिए नहीं बचा। सोशल सर्कल्स ब्रेक डाउन हो गया है। क्योंकि आप किसी से बात नहीं कर सकते हो, उनका बात करने का तरीका ही अलग है। क्योंकि आप ऑपोजिशन का बात करोगे तो ऑपोजिशन को ये लोग ने एनिमी बना के रख दिया है। हर एक ऑपोजिशन, कोई भी स्टेट का रीजनल पार्टीज भी एक एनिमी है। मतलब मेन
या
ऑपोजिशन कांग्रेस है, नहीं, आप हर, ममता बनर्जी भी इज ऑल्सो उनके लिए एनिमी है। आपका यूपी में जाएंगे तो जो भी रीजनल पार्टीज है वो भी आपका ये है। पंजाब में जाओ आप भी, आपकी है, वो भी एनिमी है। मतलब ऑल द ऑपोजिशन पार्टीज के बारे में आप बात करोगे तो दे आर एनिमीज, और एक ही खाली पार्टी है जो आपका उद्धार कर सकती है, मतलब इनका एक वो है। दूसरा बात, ये जो इतना इनको वैलिडेशन मिलता है, ये जो विजिलेंटिस ग्रुप हो जाने के बाद ये लोग अपना वीडियोस बना के, बहरहाल 10 15 का ग्रुप बना के, फिर कभी बड़ा ग्रुप बना के, नॉर्थ में जैसा दिखाई देता है अभी महाराष्ट्र में भी दिखाई देता है। मतलब बिगर डर के अपना फेस दिखाते हैं। हाथ में, उनके हाथ में जो तलवारें हैं, बंदूकें लेके चलते हैं, मतलब बिगर डर के। नहीं तो ये पहला ऐसा तो नहीं था ना कभी भी। पहला तो ऐसा डर नहीं था ना आदमी को कि कभी आप, अभी मतलब एक टाइप का वो फियर फैक्टर वो लोग ने स्टेट में आपको लगा के रखा है। ये
या
स्टेट ने
वही
अपना दे
राज
दिया
बोल
है।
रहा था ना कि स्टेट
हाँ,
मतलब वायलेंट था, लेकिन वो सबके ऊपर वायलेंट था, बट अब वो वायलेंस
तो
इज वेरी सिलेक्टिव।
तो ये डीप स्टेट हो गई, ये डीप स्टेट बन गया है। एक एक डीप स्टेट जैसा बन गया है ना ये भी। इनको
हम्म।
अपना, वो लोग ने अपना कार्यक्रम दे दिया है कि हम नहीं करेंगे, तुम करो, लेकिन हम चुप करके बैठेंगे।
या
ये एक बहुत बड़ा फैक्टर है। जो अगर कोई नया रूलिंग पार्टी आता है तो देखेंगे, जैसा कर्नाटक में किया है अभी। कर्नाटक में वी डोंट हियर मच मच ऑफ दिस इश्यूज ऑफ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट अगेंस्ट मुस्लिम्स और एनीबॉडी। तो ऑब्वियसली फियर फैक्टर में तो सब लोग को फियर रहेगा ही ना इसमें, है ना। तो अभी what I was coming to is the mental state जो होता है ना हमारा, because you are 24/7 into that news, and you are 24/7 into those books, or you are 24/7 into those research papers what political scientists are writing. You are reading those papers, so you are getting all that conflict reports to read. Then if the parliament is in session, then you follow those handles which cover the parliament, like माध्यम हो गया या और भी हो गया, PRS हो गया. So you come to know कि साला उधर भी क्या हो रहा है, देखो, you know what is happening. 2 मिनट में बिल पास हो रहे हैं, एक ही दिन में विदाउट डिबेट सब पास हो गए, और वो उसका एंड रिजल्ट क्या होगा, एवरीबडी नोज, विच आर बैड फॉर द कंट्री, बट नोबडी. जो जो राइट विंग से जो तुम बात कर सकते हो, दे डू नॉट इवन अंडरस्टैंड कि क्या हो रहा है, बट दे आर सो जो राइट विंग है, सोशल सर्कल्स वाले, दे आर आपके सोसाइटी सेक्रेटरी है, वो वहां पे सोसाइटी का बहुत लॉज एंड इससे चलेंगे. लेकिन जब उनको पूछा जाएगा कि आपने वो पॉलिसी देखा, वो क्या हुआ, पास हुआ, उसका इफेक्ट नहीं, वो उसको नहीं मालूम है. उतना उसका काम नहीं है, उतना दूर तक उसका सोचने का काम नहीं है, क्योंकि वो बहुत डिफिकल्ट है समझना उसको. तो वो सिंपल लैंग्वेज में बता देगा कि ऐसा ऐसा हुआ है, तो वो बोलेगा हाँ ये हमारा, जैसा जैसा वो अभी तीन 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 लॉज आ गए नए वाले, क्रिमिनल लॉ, वो जो हिंदी में कन्वर्ट कर दी, उसका 10 लाइन लिख दिया, उसमें कम से कम एक एक में 400 500 कोड है, 1000 1200 कोड है, आर्टिकल, वो नहीं पड़ेगा कोई भी. उसमें क्या है, सेक्शन 155 है, जिसमें वो लोग लिखता है कि इवन द जजेस कैन बी प्रोसिक्यूटेड. यू अंडरस्टैंड, इफ ही गिव्स अ रॉन्ग जजमेंट, तो उसको भी तुम, जैसा इसराइल में हुआ, क्योंकि वो इसराइल का जैसा लॉ आया, तो तो वो अगर रॉन्ग जजमेंट दिया तो उसको भी ये करेक्ट कर सकता है. तो वो सब कोई ज्यादा डिटेल में जाएगा नहीं, वो बोलेगा हाँ अभी हमारा कॉलोनियल हैंगओवर उतर गया, हमारा इंडियन लॉज आ गया, दोस टाइप्स ऑफ थिंग्स दे टॉक. तो हाउ डू यू स्पीक टू दिस टाइप ऑफ पीपल, प्लस दूसरा जो मेन बात है मैं करना चाहता था, एंटरटेनमेंट जो हमारा लाइफ में था ना पहला, वी वुड गेट एंटरटेन बाय वॉचिंग अ स्टैंड अप कॉमेडी शो और अ मूवी, स्टूपिड मूवी ऑल्सो होता था, तो जाके वी वुड जस्ट go and enjoy. Abhi, you don't find solace in those things also. Nothing is entertaining for you now. You are so deep into this bullshit.
So
कि
deep into
in
hate कि मतलब
hate, to you're deep into thinking of how these things will get good, which you don't see any time in the near future. Ke, things might turn good. So you are such in a state of mind ke anything entertaining for somebody else is also not entertaining for you. तुम मरने दो बोलोगे जाके, क्या करते, नहीं मेरे को वो स्टैंड अप नहीं देखना है, या मेरे को वो जोक्स में भी मजा नहीं आता, मतलब यू अंडरस्टैंड, दैट इज व्हाट इज हैपनिंग.
बट ओवरवेलमिंगली मतलब जो भी कंटेंट भी आता है, मतलब इवन इफ इट इज टीवी न्यूज़ और मूवीज, जो मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया है जिसको लोग कंज्यूम करते हैं टू गेट एंटरटेनमेंट, राइट, वो भी तो मतलब प्लेज अ ह्यूज रोल इन फिलिंग द सोसाइटी विद हेट एंड बिगेटरी, राइट. मतलब आप कुछ भी देखो, मतलब देर इज सटल हिंट्स, वो मतलब वंस यू स्टार्ट लुकिंग एट इट, वो मतलब आप यू कैन नॉट लुक एट इट. और मतलब बेसिकली दिस इज इंडोक्ट्रिनेटिंग द होल सोसाइटी इन जनरल. अगर कोई बच्चा भी है, वो भी रोज रोज वही सुनता है, एंड देन दे गेट कंडीशन टू थिंक अबाउट कि यार यही गलत है और यही सही है. बिकॉज लाइक एनके जी मैंशन, मतलब लेफ्ट या प्रोग्रेसिव बातें कोई करता नहीं है, राइट. और वो अगर कोई करता भी है तो ये जो मतलब दे कम अक्रॉस एज मॉकरी, राइट. मतलब नोबडी वांट्स टू टॉक अबाउट दोज थिंग्स सीरियसली. वो सिर्फ वो बियर बाइसेप्स या फिर अय्यर मित्रा जैसे टाइप के लोग उसका मजाक उड़ाते हुए, तो मतलब पीपल गेट टू हियर दोज टॉकिंग पॉइंट्स. सो या, बट या गो हेड एनके जी, अगर सुनील सर आपका पॉइंट ओवर हो गया हो तो.
और मैं एक
हाँ हाँ,
छोटा
आई
सा
एम
पॉइंट रख दूं. ये जो तुम
हाँ.
एंटरटेनमेंट को बोल रहे हो, तो अभी ये जो बिग बॉस चलता है, मेजोरिटी ऑफ इंडियन घर में वही देखा जाता है. उसमें देखो जो लड़का जीता है या जो भी है, ही इज आउट एंड आउट बिगेट. जो यूट्यूब पे वो चलाता है, जो उसका नाम क्या है, एल्विस कुछ नाम है. सो ही इज एन आउट एंड आउट बिगेट. और उसके वीडियोस यही, मतलब ही विल एड्रेस पीपल लाइक विथ पंचर वाला है ये, तो ये है, आई मीन द मुस्लिम इन्फ्लुएंसर या जो होंगे उनको उस तरीके से. तो basically subtle or openly there is a clear narrative going on. Yeah,
आई एग्री.
even joke, comedy, everything. And just you have to look carefully, you will see that.
So maybe I'm looking too much into it, but recently I was watching Rocket Boys. I don't know अगर आप लोगों ने वो देखा है कि नहीं. But even in a show like that, right, which is just talking about how India became, a nuclear power, or the story of two great scientists of our nation, उसमें भी I felt कि there was subtle मतलब Islamophobia in the show. Mostly because if you guys have seen it, there is a character called Raza Mehndi, right? There is no such scientist. कोई ऐसा scientist नहीं था इंडिया में उस टाइम पर. There, so the show defines it as कि this is a character that is introduced to मतलब culminate a few other thoughts that were going around in the society at the time. और उसका character बनाया उन्होंने एक Muslim, which is hated by everyone, which is looked down upon mostly as a spy for the CIA, या फिर person who would like to jeopardize the scientific discoveries of the nation. I mean, sure. I mean, if you want to have that character, go ahead.
और
It's a
रियलिटी
drama
में जो
show.
पकड़ा गया था वो कौन था ये भी देखो, उसी का
Exactly.
रियलिटी में जो पकड़ा गया.
वहीं आ रहा था मैं कि मतलब मेरा चेन ऑफ थॉट मतलब चला गया, लेकिन बट माय पॉइंट वाज कि इवन दो देयर वाज नो नीड फॉर दैट पर्सन टू बी मतलब कॉल्ड रजा मेहदी, बट देयर वाज अ डिसीजन, क्रिएटिव डिसीजन मेड जहां पर उसको बनाया आउटराइट मुस्लिम एंड देन उसको बनाया like a hated character. But and the reality is in front of everyone. मतलब जो हनी ट्रैप हुआ was the exact opposite of that character. But anyway, my ramblings aside, go ahead, NK.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about something that's like a topic that started a bit back, which was like, has this always been there? And this also ties into Nidhi's experiences, which she shared about the cab experience. Like, this is a well-known fact even when I was young. So my parents come natively from UP, and I have been in touch with many people from UP throughout my life. And this was like a thing that I remember one person told me that वहाँ पर आप जाओगे तो like if you're traveling especially near Kanpur and all, that if you, again, same experience, if you're traveling on public transport, you strike up a conversation with someone and then they ask you तुम्हारा नाम क्या है, and let's say I just say XYZ, I just say my first name, I just say Rahul, let's say. So they'll be like, राहुल क्या,
Yeah.
ठीक है, बिकॉज वहां पर सिर्फ इतना नहीं है, दे आर, द कास्टिज्म इज आल्सो वेरी,
that casteism तो मतलब yes, that's true.
so वहां पे तो दे आर इज सो लाइक दे वेयर इट ऑन देयर स्लीव्स, दे डोंट केयर, they are very very upfront about how they prefer to talk to and mingle and with and all. In Bangalore, since I also have experience living in Bangalore, the bigotry is between mostly northerners and natives here. Because here the local politics, a lot of the local politics is driven by this narrative, oh, northerners came and ruined the city, and look where they live, they call it Bangalore, this is not even Bangalore, and so much weather has changed, some nonsense like that. I mean, it's not really nonsense. Urbanization has contributed to the city like losing its natural charm. I would support that, but then again, it's not as if it is downstream of decisions that their own leaders took like 20-25 years ago to make it like a IT hub, and still the narratives of course get driven in that direction. But I would say this thing, right, whether this has always been there or not, I think it has, and especially what we call that Hindi belt, it has definitely always been there. And the more towards UP and Bihar areas you go, the more upfront it has always been. And there has always been like this sort of this tense peace between these communities, because a lot of these people, they tout that, okay, look at that village where the a mandir and a masjid is side by side, and this and that. That is a very precarious situation. People don't realize that communities where that has happened, such a situation, live on the edge of a riot. Okay, there people are not like it's very very extremely rare, because this is like liberal narrative that, oh no, everyone can get along with an equal level of religiosity. It is not, because it's and to think that all religious differences are completely artificial. there are ideological differences, but right now the drift has been like at a completely like all-encompassing level, and now it is more like tied to, as I mentioned earlier, existentialism, existence as a group of people, right? So many narratives about Hindu phobia. There was this video recently of
Right.
people from Harvard, I think, which is
Mhm.
like, claiming, okay, some, and they're just like, they're just vaguely gesturing. They're not saying out loud what exactly is the Hindu phobia they're
Yeah.
facing,
Because it
right?
doesn't
There is,
exist. Yeah.
or if they actually point it out, right? For example, when I think it was California that passed like a law that was like, okay, we denounce, we caste-based discrimination is now on the books, banned for employment, right? And so many of these guys cried Hindu phobia that. So if they just come out with the thing that they actually think are the instances of Hindu phobia, that will be very obvious that they're just bigoted. They're just like, they're just saying that, oh, why this will disproportionately affect Hindus. Why would it disproportionately affect Hindus if you, according to you, caste-based discrimination does not exist,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, उस पोस्ट के वायरल होने से पहले there was a post viral where two, I think, I don't know if it was Harvard or Oxford or what university, but दो लोग वो हवन कर रहे थे in the university grounds में बैठ के, right? And they were flaunting their religion. Then nobody was trying to go after them. It was Oxford. Thank you, Raj. Yeah. So, I mean, is that really Hinduphobia? But I mean, go ahead. Sorry to disrupt you.
No, but yeah, none of it is like nobody, they have co-opted so much of like, anti-imperialist language, for example.
Yeah.
They have co-opted so much of it that, oh, it's like all of this was imposed upon us by like Britishers. Casteism was imposed
Yeah.
upon us. Casteism didn't was not really a thing before British Raj.
I
That is also a
mean, they
narrative.
want
Yeah.
decolonization to happen, right? But their decolonization is replaced by Brahminical supremacy, which is
Yeah.
the problem. Because वो अगर उसको oppose करोगे, then that becomes Hinduphobia for them.
Because integration is a Western concept. Because living in harmony with other communities is a liberal
Yeah.
Western idea that they have imposed upon us.
Yeah,
So
that's
they
true.
co-opt that way.
Yeah.
So I
But
think yeah, but
no, sorry. यूपी की बात आई थी तो I was just saying कि even I am from the beloved state of UP. तो मेरा lived experience is a little different from what you said, right? So I think, I mean, I don't think there is like a black and white answer to this question whether this hate and bigotry has always been a part of the society. It's always been there. Maybe it peaks, maybe it sometimes it is reduced, but there has always been these forces that try to either gel the society together or they try to like oppose the or break the society together. And it depends on at what point of time you were at that place when these things were happening, right? So when I grew up, so I grew up in a place called Allahabad, right? Prayagraj.
now Prayagraj, yeah.
Now famously called as Prayagraj. So that place was at least to me, maybe it was a function of my privilege or what. I'm not UC, but then to me, it always felt like कि ये मतलब this was the how do I say it? मतलब the perfect example of what Indian Constitution wanted the society to be, right? There was secularism, there was perfect intermingling. I mean, of course, there were differences like casteism, there were horrific things that were going on, but at that time, मतलब if you call it propaganda or का effect या जो भी हो, मतलब the society was not as polarized as it is now. So I would see like a mandir, masjid, जैसे the same cliches, right? Together, वहाँ पे लोग जा रहे हैं, अपना काम कर रहे हैं, doesn't matter, right? मेरा a neighbor is a Muslim, it doesn't really matter. My classmates are Muslims, we play together. My parents don't have a problem with us hanging together. हम गंगा घाट जाते थे यार, बैठते थे वहां पर. Imagine मंदिर के चबूतरे के बाहर. Like these kind of things have happened before, and that is where I felt that मतलब due to certain forces the society was headed towards, because that is also the state which gave you different caste movements or progressive things, but अब मतलब that's what I just wanted to say. Basically, it saddens me, right? Like what has that place come to it, because now if you go there, it feels like the epicenter of the hate and bigotry. So the structures that existed together, like the masjid और मंदिर जो साथ में हुआ करते थे, वहाँ पे एक स्ट्रक्चर टूट गया है, एंड नो points for guessing which one is broken now, right? So this is how it has become, and now people are distrustful of each other. But so I felt like this is by design. It was not, it was there always, but then there were there were powers that were trying to gel it back together, because secular existence is the way to go, right? शायद लीडर्स ने ये उस टाइम के आइडेंटिफाई किया होगा, एंड दैट इज व्हाई they were encouraged to do that, and that is what was happening. But then it needs, because there are so many differences between so many people, right? It needs a lot of work, and वो एक मिनट में जा सकता है if the people who hold power over us want that to happen. So maybe that is what happened. That's what I just wanted to say. So please, my ramblings aside, differences have always been in this society and probably will continue to be there. But matlab, the way this whole subcontinent has shaped up, right? Matlab, वो it would have, मतलब मेरे हिसाब से it would have collapsed on itself अगर, क्या बोलूँ मैं उसको, मतलब ऐसे collective existence की एक चाह नहीं होती अगर लोगों के अंदर already, right? Like so there are societies like, मतलब जहाँ like यूपी का एग्जांपल ले लो, right? Akbar was the king there, like for so many, I don't know how many years, but उसका वहाँ पर किला भी है, right? And he was very fond of the city. वो वहाँ पे रहता था, ठीक है, लेकिन still it was, उसके किले के बगल में ही संगम है, right? तो it was like, मतलब जो existence था without the bottle cap thing that you were talking about was still at least aiming towards coexistence. It was not always polarizing, but it was, मतलब somehow क्या, अब हमें तो पता ही है कि who realized it and how, but when it was realized कि इसको मतलब electoral gains में कैसे बदल सकते हैं and we can exploit it, there were people who wanted to do it and there were people who were against it. And right now I think the favor or the power is towards those kind of people who want to like exploit it for their own electoral gain.
But do you really think state even if wants will is able to stop that? Because bigotry और ये जो है, ये एक ऐसा शेर है जिसके ऊपर तुम चढ़ के सवारी कर सकते हो बट तुम उसे उतर नहीं सकते. As soon you jump off, वो तुम्हें ही खा जाएगा. So it is like sacrificing your whole political entity if you just go. Because देखे हो ना कभी कभी जब मोदी की बात, इवन वो ईद विश करता है तो क्या कमेंट आते हैं, और वो उसके हार्डकोर सपोर्टर कमेंट करते हैं.
No, I was saying, I mean, I'm hopeful in this way that I agree with you that state can actually help if it wants to. मतलब कई सारी चीजें हुई हैं अलग अलग कंट्रीज में जहाँ पे वायलेंस बिल्कुल चरम पे थी, उसके बाद वापस लाए हैं ना उसको बैलेंस पे. तो अगर चाहें तो कर सकते हैं, जिस तरह से हेल्प कर रहे हैं अभी दूसरी तरफ से वायलेंट लोगों को सपोर्ट करने में, वो अब तो मतलब अगर चाहें तो वो भी नहीं करना है, सिर्फ प्रॉपर चीजें, प्रॉपर जस्टिस देना है, जस्टिस भी नहीं देना है, सिर्फ इतना मेंटेन करना है कि वायलेंस हो ही ना. हार्ड चेंज का तो नहीं पता, थिंकिंग तो नहीं चेंज होगी, बट ठीक है उसमें टाइम लगेगा, वो नहीं तुरंत चेंज आएगा. बट ये जो वायलेंस है, ये जो इतना ज्यादा हर कोई अनसेफ फील कर रहा है, आई डोंट थिंक ये पहले इतना अनसेफ कोई फील कर रहा था, या फिर मैं बहुत छोटी थी मुझे नहीं पता था. लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि अगर गवर्नमेंट चाहे तो बहुत सारी चीजें चेंज कर सकती है. मतलब बहुत ज्यादा कम लेवल पे वायलेंस तो रोक ही सकते हैं. जो ओपनली यहाँ पे अभी नो वायलेंस में फिर से बोल रहे हैं कि अब वो क्या बोल रहे हैं कि हम फिर से 28 या 24 अगस्त को वापस से यात्रा निकालेंगे और कोई कुछ नहीं कर सकता है. हम परमिशन नहीं मांग रहे हैं, हम बता रहे हैं कि हम निकालेंगे यात्रा और हम गन्स लेके जाएंगे. तो अगर अच्छी गवर्नमेंट है, अगर चाहते हैं रोकना, तो वो निकलने ही नहीं देंगे। अभी क्या कह रहे हैं कि हम गन्स नहीं अलाउ करेंगे। तुम निकलने ही क्यों दे रहे हो इस तरह की चीज, अगर वो उनका मोटिव ही यही है कि हम लड़ाई ही करेंगे जाकर के वहां पर। तो मैं ये बोल रही हूँ कि अगर गवर्नमेंट का ये अगर विल है रोकने का, तो वो कर सकते हैं इस तरह की चीजें। तो मतलब जैसे अभी वहां पर कितना ज्यादा इफेक्ट पड़ा है मुस्लिम्स पर, कितनी
Yeah.
मुस्लिम्स पर, कई कई मतलब हिंदूज पर भी, बट आई थिंक गवर्नमेंट कैन स्टॉप इट।
See, a
चीजें
great
रोकी जा
example of
सकती।
what you are saying is right. मतलब independence के time पे the partition violence that was going on, the society could have crumbled, but the at least
यस,
मुझे पाकिस्तान की मतलब क्या on मतलब जो functioning थी उसके बारे में इतना नहीं पता है, but at least I've read a little about what the leaders of India wanted India to be और उनका political will क्या था, right? उस वक्त जो लोग थे on top, right? तो that is why it panned out.
एग्जैक्टली,
It might not have हम जो आज देख रहे हैं वो शायद उस वक्त ही मतलब हो गया होता और हम बन गए होते
यस,
हिंदू राष्ट्र और whatever, but the will, the political will matters, I think.
Yeah, sorry. Actually, I think what it is, one was some good that someone has brought it up also. That okay, first thing of your experience is right. I think the communal tensions have always been there, more prominent for lower classes than the upper, and this is something that I can like I again depends. And what I think this undercurrent has always been there. What it has been is like a powder keg which just needed a spark. And what that spark has been is institutional sort of support, because what it is 2014 Modi's thrust was this Hindu nationalism, and that acted like, so now everything that was happening, or rather at the potential of happening throughout, now became glorified and romanticized. And now they, as someone mentioned, riding the lion, how do you tame it, how do you tie it back, right? And I feel this sort of wave is then what they're essentially, somebody would have also heard this saying that you burn your house and try to warm your hands with it, is what is BJP is trying to do, is they have lit this fire and they think they will be able to warm their hands with it for as long as possible, but it is very close to going out of their hands, because these groups, once they get, because they don't have any morals, like they are just a political party, they just want control and power. But there are people who are ideologues, people who ideologically believe in things like Hindu Rashtra at the very least. Okay. And what so once they get disillusioned and they realize, then they're like, oh, we need to take matters in our own hands. And that's what I mentioned, those groups, sort of kind of underground groups that are forming are with that intention. So they also hate Modi, but in the opposite direction. Like Modi is not Islamophobic enough. Okay. So I think that, and again, prediction for the future from my side, I think things will get at least a little more worse before they start getting better. I hope that not get too bad, but the momentum is in a very negative direction right now.
I'll just butt in for a second, just for a second. I'll just give you one news today.
Go ahead.
आप लोग ने सुना होगा कि पाकिस्तान में they burnt out a church or and burned
Yeah.
down the
फैसलाबाद
Bible and
में
all. हाँ, but immediately there was a arrest of 129 Muslims and they were booked for this thing. Now imagine in a country like Pakistan, which is a Islamic country, and they went the way we are going now. They have turned probably full circle now. They've had good Taliban, bad Taliban things, all those things. Now imagine immediately there was arrest of 129 people. The judge has told कुछ जजेस ने भी कमेंट्स किया है आज. इमेजिन यहाँ पे तो ऐसा हो ही नहीं रहा है ना. So if the जैसा नितिन बोला, if the state wants it can do it, but the state is looking the other way around. इनको जैसा बोला 23rd को या 28th को वो फिर जुलूस निकलेगा इनका, जो वो निकलेगा, तो फिर डर का एक माहौल हो जाएगा. स्टेट डजंट वांट टू डू एनीथिंग इन दैट केस. तो स्टेट का तो काम है रोकना, लेकिन स्टेट रोक नहीं रहा है ना. ये एक बड़ा दिक्कत का काम, प्रॉब्लम है बड़ा.
Please.
मेरा दो ही पॉइंट्स था इस पे कि आई एग्री विद द फीमेल स्पीकर. स्टेट वांट्स इट, दे कैन कंट्रोल इट, लेकिन व्हाट आर वी सेइंग हु द स्टेट इज. here, right? Are we saying the state as the government, or are we saying the institutions as the state, right? So government is actually trying to feed out of all this bigotry and everything that is being run, right? They think that polarization is actually beneficial for them in the elections. So the more polarized, the more seats they will get. So if the government is what we are talking about, yes, then I don't see any way where they can bottle up the whole thing, right? And the other thing that the female speaker mentioned before was how the state can prevent this, right? So I am here in the United States, right? So here what I see is I've been here since the 9/11, just after the 9/11 thing happened. So I have lived in this whole thing where there was so much of hate towards a particular Muslim community when the 9/11 happened, right? And then we had the 8 years of Obama period, and the kind of statements he made and the kind of the actions that the government put forth. I don't say the whole Muslim anti-Muslim thing has completely vanished, but it has reduced substantially, right? So the state can be pivotal in this way of controlling the narrative. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
That's true. मैं अभी एनके जी ने जो पॉइंट रखा हुआ, मुझे एक छोटा सा डिसएग्रीमेंट था, and unfortunately they've left, so but I just wanted to put it out there कि I do not think कि जो undercurrents of bigotry and hate था वो was more prevalent in the lower castes or the oppressed caste in, so mostly because if you see what are the मोस्ट मतलब जैसे जो सोसाइटीज हैं जहाँ पर ये को एग्जिस्टेंस नहीं दिखता है, वो आर द वंस विच आर यू नो द मोस्ट प्रोमिनेंट और व्हाट इज इट कॉल्ड, ऐसे वो गेटेड सोसाइटीज जहाँ पर यू नो पीपल फ्रॉम द अदर फेथ आर नॉट अलाउड, बट the lower stratas of the societies have always lived together. I mean, वो undercurrents होंगे, but they were not as prominent, to be honest. बस एक छोटा सा पॉइंट था. Yeah, so
मुझे बस एक बात बोलनी थी कि जैसे तुम बोल रहे हो स्टेट करना चाहे, स्टेट उसी के भरोसे तो पावर पे आ रहा है. आई मीन वो नहीं हो तो बीजेपी कैसे पावर में है? आई मीन जो नू में हो रहा है, यू थिंक इट जस्ट हैपनिंग बाय डिफॉल्ट और लाइक ये, अरे अभी तो इवन इंडिपेंडेंस डे की तिरंगा यात्रा की देखो न्यूज. एनी फंक्शन, एनी फेस्टिवल, इट्स ऑल अबाउट हाउ वी कैन boo them and try. I mean उनका ये रहता है कि सामने से कुछ भी थोड़ा सा हो and will start massacre. तो डेफिनेटली नेहरू ने यही किया था. आई मीन आई कंप्लीटली एग्री. बिगेटरी एंड वो सब तब भी था.
India and the societies in India, these are such complex, इतने ज़्यादा complex होते हैं. You know, the privilege is there in layers, the discrimination exists in layers. जो undercurrent हम लोग experience करते थे पहले against Muslims, I have experienced the same undercurrent of hate again or discrimination against other communities as well. जैसे कि Christians हो गए, जैसे कि people coming from the tribal society or people coming from the underprivileged caste. Even you know same state में different districts को लेके we see so much hate. Or let's say if people are from East Coast, they will understand. Odias and Bengalis, they have so much of hatred going on, and even gender को लेके इतना ज़्यादा hate है. So all these things, and people are increasingly becoming zombies because पहले at least we had a shared reality, but अभी algorithms के वजह से we are in our own bubbles. So it is very easy कि वो fine lines जो थे उसको exploit करना, and it will be only a matter of time. These right-wing organizations will come after, will try to manipulate people based on any of these fine lines. So people shouldn't think कि ठीक है Muslims the story is going to end. It will continue.
यार डिप्रेस तो बहुत ज्यादा हूँ in general. This everyone out there बस violence दिख रहा है ऐसे. I've lost hope basically. Have lost friends due to ideology. Have lost hope in this country. एक साइड पे violence बहुत ज्यादा है और मतलब the amount of hate that has been, well, boiled down to in each individual, ये लेवल पे है कि लोग एक दूसरे का चेहरा भी नहीं देखना चाहते, तो इट्स वेरी सैड. ऑल्सो वन अदर थिंग, मेरे को दूसरा ये भी लगता है कि आई डोंट नो व्हाट पीपल, लेट्स से आफ्टर 20-25 और लेट्स से 40-50 years, उनको ये बात रियलाइज भी होंगी क्या कि यार ये जितना वॉट एवर दिस पैच हैज बीन, मतलब बहुत गलत है यार हम लोग, या फिर ये वही माइंडसेट में रहेंगे कि नहीं ये तो बराबर ही था ये सब जो कुछ हुआ था. तो
I don't know if मतलब हम अपनी society will understand this, but at least this will be recognized worldwide. मतलब there are things that are मतलब identified as this thing is wrong, right? Islamophobia is wrong, bigotry is wrong, hate is wrong. My point was कि see, nobody is realizing these things right now outside of our own societies because we don't care, matter, right? हम लोग का world में ऐसा कोई मतलब बहुत बड़ा स्टैंडिंग नहीं है कि मतलब लिटरली एवरी टॉकिंग पॉइंट्स विल बी फॉर इंडिया. सो माय पॉइंट इज कि व्हेन इन हिस्ट्री, मतलब सॉरी इन फ्यूचर, व्हेन द स्कॉलर्स ऑफ हिस्ट्री विल लुक बैक टुवर्ड्स दिस टाइम and see what was going on, they will maybe write a PhD thesis about how things were so bad in India, and that is all. I mean, that is all I expect to happen, and that's pretty much it. That book, that
I
PhD
just
thesis will probably
I
will never be read by anybody, but it will be recognized. Sorry, go ahead.
I just hope the university doesn't disown them in the future.
Yeah.
आई लाइक
मतलब
जस्ट वन वन थिंग. आज भी अगर आप सिंधी का जो, अगर आप वो सिंधी जो 1947 का जो पेपर्स है, रीता रीता जो है, शी इज अ प्रोफेसर इन अहमदाबाद, शी इज रिटन अ लॉट ऑन दिस पार्टीशन ऑफ सिंध. देयर आल्सो शी हैज इंटरव्यूड सो मेनी पीपल, एंड मैंने बहुत लोगों से बात की है, बट प्रॉब्ली वो हेट नहीं दिखाते हैं जितना अभी जैसा लोग हेट दिखाते हैं ना, वैसा वो हेट नहीं दिखाते हैं. ये हमारे एल्डर जैसा नहीं दिखाते.
but I think
I'll give you one short example. My father was also a pakka RSS guy, but then in Pakistan also they had that RSS camps and all, because when the riot started, the RSS was quite active in Sindh also, and shakas वगैरह चलती थी, तो इधर आने के बाद भी he used to go to shaka. He was, लेकिन the day he left शाखा, उसको बोला गया था कि you will have to fight, एंड वो मुर्गा पहले काटना पड़ेगा आपको, क्योंकि आपको आगे जाके दूसरा काटना है कोई चीज. तो तभी उसने छोड़ दिया आरएसएस. बोला मेरे से ये काम नहीं होगा, मतलब लड़ाई वाला काम मेरे से नहीं होगा. माय फादर यूज टू हैव, हमारे घर में ऑर्गेनाइजर भी आता था, महात्मा गांधी का बायोग्राफी भी होता था, नेहरू का भी लिखा हुआ किताब होता था, फ्रेंच वाला जो टाइम पे जब भी उधर का थिंकर्स था उसका भी बुक्स होता था. मतलब हर एक टाइप का हमारे पास घर में बुक्स उस वो पढ़ता था. तो उसको वर्ल्ड व्यू ज्यादा मिला प्रॉब्लम, एंड ही डिड नॉट लीन टू मच ऑन द आरएसएस. तो वो खुद भी बोलते थे ये लोग सही नहीं है. मतलब ये जो आरएसएस का है ना, द ट्रेनिंग व्हाट ही बचपन में जो मिला, तो ही वाज नॉट कांग्रेस ही जैसा, आस्ते आस्ते फिर कांग्रेस ही बनता गया वो, तो ये बहुत लोग ने छोड़ भी दिया उनको आगे जाके.
ग्रोइंग अप या फिर आफ्टर गोइंग टू कॉलेज में, आई बिलोंग फ्रॉम अ कॉमर्स स्ट्रीम, तो ज़्यादा करके यूजुअली ऐसे देखा जाता है तो क्राउड तुम्हारा जो भी रहता है तो इट्स इधर फ्रॉम द मारवाड़ी कम्युनिटी, गुजराती कम्युनिटी, मतलब अभी मैं मेरे केस में बोल सकता हूँ, मैं जहाँ से आता हूँ वहाँ पे, और मेजरली सारे चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंसी वगैरह करने वाले स्टूडेंट्स होते हैं. तो मेरा एक्सपीरियंस शुरू होता है वहाँ से. एक तो एक मतलब इनिशियल इम्प्रेशंस तो मेरे इसके मतलब मेरा इन जनरल अपब्रिंगिंग नहीं था वैसा, मगर मैं जब इनके साथ इंटरेक्शन करता था तो दो चीज़ें थी जो मैंने प्रिलिमिनरी ऑब्जर्व की थी. एक तो ये इनका मनी माइंडनेस, और दूसरा थोड़ा बहुत हेट. और ये मुझे बाद में पता चला. इनिशियली तो क्या है कि ये लोग बिजनेस कर रहे हैं, ये वीकेंड्स पे इनका जो भी रिलीजियस इनके गैदरिंग्स होते हैं वो अटेंड वगैरह करते हैं. एक दिन अचानक से मुझे दोस्त ने ये बताया कि यार वो कुछ ऐसे करना चाहता है विद रिस्पेक्ट टू समथिंग रिलेटेड टू काउस. तो मैंने कहा क्या करना, और दीज आर मतलब तब ये गुड फ्रेंड्स थे मेरे. यू मतलब यू गो टू क्लासेस विद देम टुगेदर, बाहर फिर मिलना वगैरह होता है। तो बोला नहीं कि यार सिचुएशन बहुत खराब है, तो मुझे गौशाला वगैरह जैसा कुछ करना है। मैंने कहा हाँ तो मतलब क्या प्रॉब्लम है उसमें? तो ही सेड कि अरे नहीं मतलब पहले तो आई आस्क्ड हिम कि क्यों वगैरह करना है? तो बोला नहीं यार ये कत्ल वगैरह हो रहे हैं, और स्टार्टेड विद दैट, फिर कि तुम्हें पता नहीं क्या बेनिफिट्स वगैरह ये वो, और मैंने सब सुन लिया ये चीज़। और फिर हमारा मेजरली कुछ उसके बाद मैं आई मूव्ड समवेयर एल्स, दे स्टेड बैक, तो ये सब वगैरह हुआ। आफ्टर दैट ये चीज़ें बढ़ती गई, तब जब आई मेट समवन हु एक्चुअली वेंट टू आरएसएस शाखा, and back then I was in a commerce program and he was in a law program back then, and he came in from an hardcore as a family which supported BJP, and ये तब कुछ भी ऐसे ये जनरल ऑब्जर्वेशंस बस होते थे, ये रियलाइजेशन बहुत लेटर टाइम पे आ जाता है। तो इट स्टार्टेड विथ बहुत छोटी छोटी चीजें होती थी। आई थिंक घर का एटमॉस्फेयर तो वैसे था नहीं, और एक तो यार थोड़ा वो प्रिविलेज का ये होता है। अब नॉट प्रिविलेज एट माय एंड, प्रिविलेज एट देयर एंड, तो वो तो यार वो एक बबल में उनका रहना, नॉट इंटरेक्टिंग विद पीपल आउटसाइड देयर सर्कल। तो अभी जिस मेरा स्कूलिंग जहाँ से हुआ है, तो आई हैव सीन पीपल जो मतलब एक कॉन्वेंट स्कूल के लोग जहाँ पे आई हैड फ्रेंड्स अक्रॉस मतलब सारे स्पेक्ट्रम्स, मतलब सिटी का कोई टॉप सा मेडिकल प्रैक्टिशनर होगा वो, और कोई लेबर होगा वो। तो आई इवन रिमेम्बर द टाइम व्हेन हमारे आई कम फ्रॉम महाराष्ट्र बेसिकली। तो वहाँ पे इफ यू रिमेम्बर बैक देन ये एमएनएस पार्टी का जो राइज था, तो ये स्पेसिफिक यूपी और इनका एक उन लोगों ने आंदोलन किया था। तो आई स्टिल मतलब एग्जैक्टली रिमेम्बर कि इट वाज एन ऑल बॉय स्कूल, और लास्ट के एक 8-10 जो लोग होते थे, देयर सरनेम यूज्ड टू बी यादव। तो इन अ क्लास ऑफ 50 पीपल ये 8 एक लोग इनके सरनेम यादव होते थे। तो व्हेन दैट थिंग हैपेंड, मेरे क्लास के 8 लोग गायब हो गए हफ्ते के लिए, एंड आई वाज क्वाइट शॉक्ड कि मतलब हर रोज उनसे मिलना वगैरह होता है, बात वगैरह होती है। तो मतलब वहां से have मेरा इंटरेक्शन मतलब अक्रॉस द स्पेक्ट्रम वैसे लोगों से था। तो एक तो अपब्रिंगिंग वाला पार्ट थोड़ा बहुत वो था, और फिर लेटर ऑन आई मेट विद अ डिफरेंट बंच ऑफ पीपल जो बहुत ही ऐसे कंजर्वेटिव माइंडसेट से आ रहे थे। तो इन्फ्लुएंस फिर वही रहा थिंकिंग वगैरह पे। तो
So I come from extreme privilege of every type. I think the only tag that I don't have is a female tag, which is the only group that does not privilege me. But apart from that, every possible privilege tag you can associate with me. I grew up extremely capitalist and consumerist. I continue to be very consumerist and slightly capital, but not very capitalist anymore. थोड़ा सा socialism की तरफ interest बढ़ गया. When I was in law school, I was introduced to the power of my privilege, especially my caste, my status as being a very high Brahmin. Uh, because I stood for the UR, एक university representative करके system होता है. I know student politics in Maharashtra is not very big, but it is slightly there in my city. So I was standing for the UR position, and I had a huge lobby of ABVP people supporting me. Also, I had a huge rally of the people from the Baramati and that section, like the NCP people supporting me, which was very contradictory. And when I started campaigning and interacting with all those people, I realized that they were so awed by the fact that a Brahmin would talk to them like a normal human being, would want to understand what are their problems in the university, in their curriculum, etc., and what were their social problems in the space, and wanting to interact with them. So I couldn't pursue it beyond 1.5 years. That was all the time I could be a UR, because my parents, especially my mom, was clearly like, तू ना ही criminal law करेगी, तू ना ही politics में जाएगी, because both of those things will end up leading to people who we don't want in our house, like murderers, rapists, etc., in our house. So you're not doing any of these two things. So both of those passions were killed at a very nascent stage for me. And at that point in time, I I continue to have a set of very liberal parents, very broad-minded, progressive parents. But post, and all this is pre 2014, post 2014, both my parents turned extremely right wing. And somewhere around 2012, my father almost became a bhakt back then. Today is totally a bhakt. He also works very closely with. So I come from a house जहाँ पे demonetization का पता था about 20 days in advance. तो इस तरह का माहौल है मेरे घर में. And since then, talking politics, talking news in my house is a very difficult and challenging thing. So I drifted from being कि ठीक है, but some things can be wrong, ना. Everything that the person says is not the gospel truth. Like कुछ तो गलत होगा, कुछ तो टोन डाउन करना चाहिए, कुछ तो अलग होगा, कुछ तो कॉन्ट्रेरियन भी हो सकता है. So let's start looking at those POVs, at least, is where I started my journey of reading, because तभी तो कोई न्यूज चैनल ऐसा था ही नहीं, मेरे को तो मिला ही नहीं. मे बी द टीवी वॉज कॉर्नर्ड बाय माई पेरेंट्स, सो I had to turn to reading. So then I started reading up, and then I started trying to argue with them ki, yeah, but is this right? Okay, Vikas, but is this right? And those arguments started failing. So somewhere in 2018, 2019, I came to a conclusion कि ये arguments करने का कोई point ही नहीं. We should just give up. So no political and factual news discussion is had in my house since 2019 till today between me and either of my parents. हम ये topic बात ही नहीं करते हैं. तो अभी भी जैसे
So I would say I have a different trajectory from my nation. So our country progressively become more communal, more bigot, and at the same time, I was starting to become more progressive and more liberal. So I came from an extremely humble background. I am from a privileged caste, but I come from an extremely humble background. I would barely used to think that I would be able to give enough. My parents, they used to think that they would be able to pay my college fees and not. And because of that humble background, so did not have that much access to literature and books and everything. And at that time, I would say, even without having an access to literature or books, we have this a feeling of an universal brotherhood among people. There was no this or perpetuating hatred and communalism was not in that society. And since I come from a very low economical background, all my friends are also from the same class of Indian society. And because of this, my access to education has given me the opportunity to rub shoulder with people from a privileged backgrounds, from a economically higher class backgrounds. I have seen both the world from a very close quarter. And that is also at the same time when I was in college, in barely in my late teens. So how it all started when the society starting to drift, and like everyone, we do not realize at that time that the society was drifting. So it's all started with this in our college WhatsApp groups or college cafeterias. People used to make Rahul Gandhi jokes, and we all used to take part in it. Like, okay, this is basically they are not they are making this Rahul Gandhi jokes. This is fine. That was all the rage back then. Now, at that time, I did not think of it as a drift towards communalism. Then there would be occasional mention of how Muslims are taking over of entire Bengal, and how of maybe the new government which came after 34 years of left rule is catering to Muslims, but it was not said in a tone with the same amount of bigotry that you can hear now. But at the same time, because I did not have access to progressive literature back when I was in school, during the college time, I get a chance to read Arundhati Roy's. I read a lot of Tagore at that time. Of many. That was my first opportunity to get my hands into literature, both progressive and non-progressives. I also read Chetan Bhagats of the world, and I was starting to shape a worldview. And because I was already coming from a place which was not very bigoted to begin with, and I was getting exposed to these progressive ideas of Tagore, of Arundhati Roy's ideas. So there, I think that started to make an impact on me. And I also remember I used to read newspaper a lot because, like many of you know, if you are an engineering student, if you are not good with engineering subjects, it is important that your English is somewhat good. I was not very good academically, and I started I studied all my life in a native language board. So English was one of those things that I need to improve on, and I started reading the newspapers. And like newspaper in Bengal in the early 2010s means you either had the option to read Times of India or Calcutta Telegraph. And I remember Calcutta Telegraph used to be like in less money, used to get more number of papers. So that was the reason I chose Calcutta Telegraph over Times of India. And that actually helped me shape my politics and worldview at that time. I did not realize all that at that time, obviously, but now the in hindsight, I see this. Now, during the same time, I see this drift happening in people. The same people who used to play in our school playground or like in our locality, the same people when I used to go back from college and talk with them, you would see they would probably progressively more drifting towards these communal ideas. Like in their WhatsApp forwards, they are like, okay, do you know that Shivaji has conquered rest of India? And you do not feel I did not feel at that time that it is necessary to engage with them and talk with them that, okay, what you are saying, this is the actual context of it. There is no one withholding information from you, the information for you to take. And because our the academic syllabus does not allow you, and none of us were academically brilliant also, the same folks, we may have skipped those chapters. It is not like there was some conspiracy going on and someone is not teaching you, withholding this information. And back in college, so when I am meeting with friends from my childhood, these are people from lower means and lower strata of Indian society. And back in college, there are people who are from probably higher economic background and also from a higher societal places also in society. And I can see the same, both the sections of the society are drifting towards communalism, but at a different pace. The higher society or the economically stronger section of the society, they are embracing this communalism, but they also trying to project it that they are embracing it because the hope for economic development. So they are saying that they are project, and this is the days of 2014 or 2013, around that time. So they are embracing Modi or Hindutva for that matter, but they were not admitting it at that time. But if you scratch the surface, and now that I can apply my hindsight, I can see it is the same thing. And but people in lower society, a lower strata of society, they were more honest, less hypocritical, and they know what they are doing without actually the pretense. They were saying that, okay, Muslims are getting all the jobs. We know Muslims are actually disrespecting our Indian culture. So this, if there would be any research paper or anything that could be done, you would probably see the Sangh ecosystem. They applied two different strategy to capture people, two different group. They sold this Gujarat model or this development to the from people from like people from higher economic background or from a higher class, and they sold this raw unhindered version of Hindutva to people from lower classes. And by the time it became 2015 or 2016, these two section has merged. So by 2016, the same people who were talking about development, they also started talking about the same thing about communalism, the same bigoted worldviews as the people from the lower class of section or lower economic class in society. So this thin pretense of development or voting for a right-wing party for development was, I think they give it up on 2016. Now 2016 is also the time when I started hobnobbing with lot many tech bros. So before that, there was no tech bros. There was only the students who were in studying in technological subjects, but they were not tech bros at that time. The moment I came across tech bros from different part of this country, I start to realize the how deep this rot is. That there was no pretense anymore. People earning in like probably in 6-digit salaries. How casually they talk about a Muslim colleague behind their back, and also sometimes at his face. And all this landmarks on Hindutva history, be it surgical strike, be it the 2019 election, all of these were landmark in this my personal Hindutva history, because I see people turning and showing their true color.
How should I put it? How do you feel like living in India today? I feel far more enabled to talk and far more vocal in a public space, even where I give out my identity, even on Instagram or on so many other platforms, as opposed to my own house. So this is a very weird feeling. I mean, a lot of people feel probably the opposite कि public platform पे political views कैसे share करें what we feel about news, how we react to certain situations around us. Like I can openly say that जो मणिपुर में हो रहा है वो सही नहीं है, न्यूज दबाई जा रही है, information क्यों नहीं है, why didn't the speech that went on forever and ever give us more than half a sentence of real information. So I can say all this publicly, but I can't say this in my house. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people feel the opposite way कि offices में नहीं discuss कर सकते हैं या कहीं और नहीं discuss कर सकते, but I feel that way at my house. So just experience at law school. So my law school experience was 2009, timeline wise 2009. Okay, 2008, 2009, that 1.5 year that time. But उसके बाद में when गोदरा started and वो न्यूज का इम्पैक्ट आने लग गया ना, मतलब अभी सीएम का एक वो कैसे एक्सप्लेन करूं मैं, वो एक व्हाट नो लेट मी rephrase that. So when when the riots happened and all that, my house was not so cued into the whole situation. Okay, मतलब they were aware कि ये हो चुका है, but उसका इम्पैक्ट हमारी डे टू डे लाइफ में नहीं आया था. ठीक है, फिर because you are a very consumerist and capitalist house, you tend to feel कि look at the Gujarat model, it is working. वहां पे कुछ हो रहा है, ठीक है. And we went to Gujarat during those years and we all of us observed कि हाँ roads बेहतर हो चुके हैं as compared to what they were. हाँ थोड़ा बहुत दिख रहा है कि people are by and large having wealth. Now as a tourist into a different state, you don't get into the brass tacks of ground level पे क्या peace, क्या harmony, क्या coexisting communities में क्या हो रहा है. You can't see all that. So you come back with a very surface view and don't dig in deep because you are consumerist, very superficial and factually untenuous. So now in around 2012 is when the real shift happened in my house कि अब हम इसके डिटेल्स में घुसेंगे या हम सोचेंगे. And at that point in time my dad also worked on expose and did an investigative piece for the government. That was the first kind of big piece of work that he did for them. So उसकी वजह से he got involved into a lot of this, a lot of the people that he started interacting with from that point onwards gave us those different ground reports that we wouldn't get easily because तभी media hammering नहीं होता था, right? जो आज information तुमको रिपब्लिक या कोई भी ऐसे न्यूज आउटलेट से मिलता है which is basically underlining the same news things in skewed in one way, वो उस जमाने में इतना नहीं मिलता था. So he got access to that sort of information and then he became that WhatsApp uncle who didn't have WhatsApp but who used to talk and influence people, right, by saying कि ये है information, सुनो, absorb करो इसको.
Okay.
So that was the drift, and that kind of input was like, this is sounding very one-sided. I mean, okay, this may be true, but इसका दूसरा side कहाँ है? Where is the other पहलू? Where is the other side of this argument? How can you make up your mind by listening to only one side of the story? Kind of started happening in my head, very frankly. मैं let's say मैं न्यूज लॉन्ड्री कंज्यूम कर रही हूँ, तो मैं अपने घर में हेडफोन्स लगा के नहीं कंज्यूम करती हूँ. मैं पूरा जो भी मेरा डिवाइस है उसका वॉल्यूम फुल करके करती हूँ. सो वो लोग सुन रहे हैं कि मैं क्या कंज्यूम कर रही हूँ. एंड अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम्स माय फादर विल पीप इनटू माय स्क्रीन आल्सो कि क्या सुन क्या रही है ये लड़की. बट they are progressive and liberal enough कि ठीक है, you can have your own political views, we will not impose. And he will not say a word and he will just walk away. मतलब so I'm not from a conservative background, so मेरे को ऐसा नहीं सिखाया गया है. मतलब very contrarian, but it's very weird to have that in one person, but it's quite dichotomous for my father. So my father uh, has raised me like a male child. राइट. मेरे बाप ने मेरे को गाली देना सिखाया है. मेरे बाप ने मेरे को हाथ पाव चलाना सिखाया है, लिटरली. आई एम नॉट किडिंग. एंड इफ आई गेट इनटू अ फाइट, माय फादर विल कम एंड स्टैंड फॉर मी एंड बी लाइक, हाँ तो सही तो कह रही है, लड़की है तो क्या हुआ. सो ही इज डन दैट एंड ही इज ऑलवेज डन दैट. सो आई कम फ्रॉम अ वेरी open minded, broad minded, liberal, progressive house, but right wing. Oxymoron.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, there is a difference between having a conservative thought process and being a bigot, right? So
yeah.
you can be both, or you can be either of the one. So
Huh, in that sense, it's a very weird. It's a very weird
yeah,
situation.
I mean,
So just the other day, so my dad has been receiving very. He doesn't receive ऐसा proper disclose करने लायक income, ठीक है, for the past whatever since he's retired. So अभी परसों before this IT return ended, he came and asked me, श्वेता वो ऑनलाइन IT रिटर्न फाइल कैसे होता है, इजी है क्या. मैंने कहा हाँ बहुत इजी है, अपना आप शेयर्स का जो भी है अपने अकाउंट में से डाउनलोड कर लो एक्सेल और वो अपलोड कर लो तो हो जाता है वो. एंड it takes me about half an hour, so it should take you about 2 hours maximum to do it yourself. And then I quietly asked him, since when have you started filing tax returns? He said, nahi, abhi ideal citizen, even if there is no taxable income, मैं return file करेगा. I'm like, अच्छा अभी सडनली टैक्स रिटर्न फाइल करने का जोश आ गया. जिस इंसान को खुद के ईमेल्स लिखने का जोश नहीं है, उसको ऑनलाइन टैक्स रिटर्न का जोश. I don't know. I found that very funny.
The dichotomy that you feel, that you can be more vocal about your experiences in public than voicing these opinions in your house. Do you like feel, is it because you come from a certain both economic privileges and caste privileges? Is this the reason? Because the harm would not be of that extent had you been from a poorer household or from a lower caste household.
So I will say कि I feel very safe because of my higher economic or higher class privilege. Okay. Honestly, कुछ भी कह लो, चाहे वो मेरे पेरेंट्स का कमाया हुआ पैसा हो या मेरे खुद का कमाया हुआ पैसा हो, जो भी पैसा हो, पैसा is very empowering. I'm sorry, it sounds very incorrect also.
But
probably.
True.
But
especially in
No,
a country
it's
like
right
India.
actually. It's right.
But
It's
it is
true.
true.
And especially in a country
Uh,
like India, because it opens, it gives you that protection.
Yes. Also, I've never come across too many people who are casteist, very frankly. मेरे interactions with people who are casteist and who consider me upper caste or consider themselves lower caste, and because of that हम दोनों में कोई फर्क है, वो difference काफी कम है. Maybe that is because I've always been in urban India. So could be that, but caste has never been something that I felt was useful. But money I've always felt is बहुत useful. Also, a lot of people listen to you if you have made it in life. क्या correlation है नहीं पता, but hey. No, but I'll say this also. So, like, because I'm a lawyer by qualification and I worked 10 years, but I've only done corporate law because I worked only in a company, like, for 10 years or different companies for 10 years. So, people ask me questions about criminal law. They ask me questions about things that I don't have experience in, right? But I may have read it thoda sa deeply because of interest. That's it. बट मेरा ओपिनियन मैटर्स क्योंकि ये बहुत बड़ी लॉयर है. अरे बहुत बड़ी लॉयर, ठीक है, अच्छा पैसा कमा ली, ठीक है, बट कौन सा लॉ करने में कमाया वो तो देखो. नहीं, हम वन साइज फिट्स ऑल. So it's like that. So that is the privilege of money. I will very clearly say it that way. Or your designation or whatever, all those things that come along with.
I feel about, if I think about India, there is a sense of fear, and there is also a sense of hopelessness that there is no turning back from whatever the path we have taken. Of course, there is a sense of extreme trepidation. I don't think I would be confident enough to. So back in 2016, 2017, I still have that confidence in me to talk to any of my colleague, and if I see them exercising their bigotry, to trying to convince them or trying to talk sense into them. But now I would rather, if I see a bunch of people indulging in bigotry, I would not allow myself to talk sense into them, because I know, first, from my experiences, I know that that would be of no use. And second thing, there is a sense of bigotry, like sense of fear also, of getting marked out as a single individual. Because in India of 2023, it is no longer India of 2016 also. It is no longer India of 2014. We have gone down the path that you always have the risk of getting singled out for your views, and that could actually have actual and adverse impact, no matter which economic clout or social clout that you still continue to hold. So I feel an extreme fear and hopelessness about my country. So I would say, I don't know, is it my naivety or it was actually like that in 2014 until 2019, there was still a hope that the path that as a country we are taking, this is not something that we can sustain very long. Like, because we have this like, I think by 2016, people have understood that the scam that came during UPA era was not actual scam. There was no, the hue and cry that they made about the corruptions and allegations were of no substance. And by 2016, no one used to talk about UPA era scams with that seriousness that people used to talk in 2014 or 2015. So there was some sense of hope. And I can see, even before the Pulwama incident and surgical strike, there was a exhaustion in people's utterances about the new regime. So people used to make fun of their attempt to changing history. People used to make fun of their attempt of changing names and all those things.
Right.
But at this moment, in last 6 to 7 years, I have seen him progressively getting worse, and the rise of hatred and in the bigotry is just increasing. There was and because I come from a state which is still not captured by BJP, so they are still forcing all their forces into it. All the like every small issues they are trying to make it communal. Every issue they are trying to politicize. So probably I am still getting the first-hand experience of how was it in 2014, which I did not get at 2014 because I did not have that worldview. So yeah, so maybe that is why my views are colored.
Yeah, just one small thing. You mentioned, Gautam, that while growing up, you felt that in your community there wasn't a lot of bigotry, at least in the community that you grew up in. I was curious, one of the axes that I'm very curious about is inter-religion relations. So, how do you feel while growing up was the sentiment among your community between I don't want to make any presumption, but of which religion you're from. But yeah, the different religion, interaction within different religions, not just among the same religion, the different class and caste. Did you feel that that was also equally harmonious?
So I would say there was always the subtle bigotry was always at play. But at that time we did not have the realization to actually to link it to the bigoted worldviews. Like there would be a cousin who would say, yeah, during India-Pakistan match, I said, no, in that Muslim colony they must be supporting Pakistan, and we would laugh it off. Like no one used to take it seriously. So it was not something that people used to. So people used to laugh it off, but there is always this subtle hint of bigotry that was always within our societies also. It was not so openly talked about, and it was not embraced at that moment. Like now everyone would believe that definitely in a Muslim colony there would be people are actually supporting Pakistan in a India Pakistan match. That time there would be an offshoot, some guy would say it. So yeah, it was like it was there, but it was not there in this extent, the bigotry and communalism. And the inter-religion marriage or inter-religion any interaction was always frowned upon. It was not something that was very uh, common in the lowest strata of the society that I came from. That if somebody used to get married to a person from another religion, it was always used to be a scandal in the neighborhood. Will always used to look at in that lens. So yeah, those things were always there.
Right. I feel like my upbringing or my formative years were very different. I mean, maybe it was my privilege, but like the place that I grew up in, and a lot of people are not gonna like it, but it was sort of the epitome of the so-called Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb, right? So, like, I had friends from all different kinds of faith. I had teachers, I had my people who I used to play cricket with, or basically we grew up in an environment where once after like having made those memories, if you tell me that this certain faith is trying to destroy India or they are the enemy, you just won't believe it anymore, because you have seen it by your own eye that is not true, right? And I don't know why. Just wanted to say that before 2014, like at least even in our schools or in our conversations, in our TV, in newspapers, at least the idea of India that was like propagated was the one of the Nehruvian idea of India, basically. I mean, I don't know how correct it is to say it is the Nehruvian idea, but we all know what it means, right? So, and that used to give me a lot of hope, basically. Like, even in last episode, I said that there was a time when like I used to feel proud ki arey dekho, like India will soon have its own place in the world. We might not have been there, but we will get there. ऐसा करके feeling आता था. But that feeling basically is now dead. It went through a slow death starting 2014, and I will confess that in 2014 I almost got convinced that this man, this Mahamanav is going to do something. I don't know why. मतलब हो सकता है because those were the years where I was also developing my own political view of the world, and I was naive, and I was surrounded in I was in engineering college, so I was surrounded by people that had that kind of a worldview. So it's sort of like an echo chamber. So I almost got convinced that this is how we will get there, but through this Mahamanav. This Mahamanav will lead us there. But that lasted maybe like, I don't know, a few months. And that was pretty much it. Because there were a few people in my life that were telling me that, listen, I mean, maybe you like this guy, but take a look at this too. Read what happened in 2002 or 91 or all of that. So when I picked up those books, started reading, that's when, that fog lifted from my head. And then, I mean, then you started seeing कि ये जो cow lynchings हो रही हैं, he's not even saying anything about it. Like I've never seen it before, but now it was like right in front of you, happening every few days, and then the people who were literally the murderers were garlanded, right? So all of that was happening, and that was just that just proved to me that everything that I was reading was basically right. And yeah, that was the turning point. But sorry for the tangent. Go ahead, other people.
Batul, I just would like to say just one thing.
Yeah.
You said that how schools used to be the secular place, common secular places for
Yes.
people. That exactly the same with us, with me
Yeah.
as well. Like
Yeah.
we never used to think about someone from which religion he belongs to before making friend. It was never the
Exactly.
norm,
Yeah.
and no one also thought of us. Like even if there was a
See,
people from a different religion, they never thought of us. Yeah, okay, he is probably from a different religion or caste. So it
see,
was
sorry
always
to
a melting point.
cut you off, Gautam, but see, I don't mean कि ये जो subtle otherization था was not there. I mean, see, that otherization was not the otherization of today. It was not. See, like even like many of us live in a, I mean, foreign country, right? So there is a certain element that comes with not knowing what the other person's culture is, or what the other person's I mean customs are. So when there is an element of unknown, you fill that gap with some sort of, I don't know, say jokes or some comedy, right? Just to make everything more, I don't know कैसे बोलूं मैं उसको, but to release that tension that arises from not knowing something, right? So that was the jokes that you would just make, but it wouldn't stop you from being friends with the other person of the other faith. It wouldn't stop you from going to their home and like having I don't know, snacks or dinner or lunch. It wouldn't stop you from participating in their festivities, and like all of that is what I mean. There was no hatred. I mean, there was, yes, there was otherization in terms of basically not knowing. So I don't know, maybe there was like a sense of innocence towards it. You wouldn't like, I mean, I don't know if I'm making sense, but basically the otherization without the hate was there. I mean, maybe it was a good thing, maybe it was bad, I don't know, but that
I
was
mean, it
what
was
I was trying to say.
definitely a bad thing, but it is not as bad as it is now. Like if you see that videos coming from this Allen classroom, that people
Yeah.
are chanting Joy Sri Ram to bully a Muslim classmates. This is something that I cannot even
We
picture
cannot
in my
imagine.
head.
Yeah,
I cannot
exactly.
imagine. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is what I mean.
Right, मतलब ठीक है, तुम जोक करते हो, but at the end of the day you are still friends with the other person of the other faith or the minority or whatever you want to do. But that discourse has ended anymore. Like अब वो होता ही नहीं. Now it's a matter of
So
dealing it as an enemy. Sorry, go ahead, Shweta.
my view of otherization was, and I will make it very personal and very blunt out there and put it. Once upon a time otherization ऐसे होता था हिंदू घरों में कि दूसरे रिलीजन के पीपल से शादी मत करो. ये मेरे घर में भी हो चुका है. My parents sat me down and told me when I was in 10th class कि you can have a boyfriend, but please do not find a Muslim, Parsi, Catholic boyfriend for yourself. ठीक है. Of course, I had to have a non-Hindu boyfriend. So I did have a Muslim guy, and I brought him home. And he was too scared to make the transition, so he didn't commit. And my parents said, if he's not willing to commit to you, then we are not in support of this match. So that is how that relationship failed. But cut to maybe another 5-6 years down the line, my parents stopped having social interactions with Muslims. Once upon a time, my father used to eat every meat under the sun. Today, he does not eat beef. ये है change between, say, 15-20 years back and today. So this is that polarizing otherization, and it's not just what has changed for people en masse. It's at a very granular level, and this jokes and dark jokes and jabs being taken. I don't know. I have seen this. I am part of a group where one person constantly sends Maulana gifs to another guy because he's Muslim, and it happens on a every other day basis, and that Muslim guy gives it back. So uh, it's very important to ensure that you So when you moderate this kind of a group, it is very important to ensure that the person who is getting all these jabs is giving it back and giving it back properly. Because the solution is not to throw one person, either of those two people out, right? You have
Yeah.
to progressively convince the guy who's sending the Maulana gifs कि भाई जो तू कर रहा है ना वो bigotry है. But if you tell him like this in these many words, it's going to have no effect on Gen Z. So you have to slowly ensure that the guy who's at the receiving end is giving it back, and this guy who has been sending the gifts has constantly been told कि your worldview has been very limited so far, Gen Z. Wake up, open your eyes, see the world, and you will know how different it is from what you thought it is.
Yeah, what I wanted to, what I've been observing with the everyone's accounts today. One thing that I just take a little bit of an issue is the idea how it feels the way that we're talking is that something transformed, rather just appeared out of nowhere around 2014 to 2016, which I kind of take issue with because again I guess I would be a millennial in the categorization of ages. And there was whatever that I consciously observe around me since day one, actually, because I have been like, my family has been like gone from like lower middle class to upper middle class. And I have like been to my rural background village as well. And I have observed people talking there. I've observed talking to people in my private school where we interacted with all different spectrum of people as well, that there had always been this sort of tension just under the surface. And tension not in a conscious way, but tension always in a very subconscious way. What we are talking about as otherization and the way that we're saying that it has now like become something else, I find it to be like rather a something that was like always there, just got a spark in the form of an institutional support. Because the jokes, for example, that you're talking about, if we go back like 10 years ago and watch like the most popular comedy shows on the TV, because that was a time when comedy TV shows, stand-up comedy TV shows were a thing, that so much of the material is like, even today, if you hear it and you'll have fond memory of them and you watch their content now, is like, oh, they were bigoted that then as well. And this was something that was, as someone mentioned, it was always like taken in good spirit. It was a presumption of that, okay, it's harmless, it's just words, no like harm, actual material harm is coming out of this. But the possibility, like for example, the thing that communities coexisting, as we sort of pointed out, that as long as you maintain a physical separation, or not physical, but like a material separation, that as long as you don't materially intertwine your lives in any way, form friendship, form partnerships with them, everything is fine. It's okay. They are over there, we are over here, separate but equal, kind of a thing. And if you interact at school, it's fine if you say hi, hello. Don't bring them to your house. Don't go to their house. They are that way. And it had always been like, the biggest example that I immediately noticed was misogyny and like casteism. Because like casteism is like well alive and well, it was alive and well back in 2012 also, and today also, full on, okay, people from the lower caste are identified by their surname, and if they come to your house, they are not given the same utensil, they are not allowed beyond a certain threshold. And I'm talking about a house that is, right, I can pretty surely say is like 20% bigger than my room right now. That is where my father's family has come from. That house is still there in our family. And even there, with whatever tiny threshold we have, we will not allow any people from lower caste beyond it. And so these are not even like some far off remote villages. This is like very core West UP experience. And what I feel is that this undercurrent of bigotry was always there, and a lot of people were like comfortable it not materially affecting them, or not being cognizant that it is materially affecting them. But with the rise of Modi, election of Modi in 2014, well, I'm pretty sure he was riding the wave of discontent that started in 2011-12 with the Anna Hazare led protests about what was it, Jan Lokpal bill, and a lot of the things came out there, corruption there, inefficiencies of the government. So everybody was done with Congress, but AAP was not that size. AAP was not that cadre yet. So everyone went with the second next biggest national party, BJP.
Yeah.
But what that did is on both sides made people more cognizant. On one side, it also made people cognizant, okay, hardcore national right-wingers now have institutional powers. And on the other side, of course, the constant propagandizing in the form of this memes and all, it is very palpable, the mood shift on the internet. Because Facebook groups is a hellhole, by the way. There are so many Facebook groups, because groups you can't moderate directly, that just filled with nothing but casteist and sexist like memes, quote unquote. And to the degree that like disgusting to the degree, and it's there like tens of thousands of membership.
Yeah.
And so what I feel is that what just happened was just like it went from like 50 to 500 rather than 0 to 500 is my opinion.
Of course. I mean, see, there is no such thing as like a perfect society, right? All societies in every corner of this world, I mean, they have their differences. So did India, right? तो मतलब हमारे अंदर भी बहुत सारा bigotry था. There was this otherization, hate, बहुत सारी चीजें थी, right? मतलब it's not like the riots only started happening in 2012 onward or 2014 onward. Right? They were always there. But what I also, what I meant was कि there was this like institutional will of keeping people together in spite of all this, which is now missing. And at least that is the India that I grew up in, where, I mean, yes, there were differences, there people would fight, but then it wasn't this outright support towards breaking it down further. That is what I mean. Yes, I completely agree with you, and that is what I also meant. It was not 0 to 500. It was like probably 50 to 500.
Yeah, I also, that we can agree on. And I just feel like even like things like Babri happened like in early 90s, and Godra and all these things, so many things happened before, like at the center,
True.
but I feel like the institutional will had been mostly passive. It was a passive peace. It was not, because there is a very good quote that peace is actively fought for. And we need to fight for peace to keep peace actively. We have to be actively working towards it. But back then, I felt people got lax. People got that, okay, it will always be like this. There will always be just exchange of words rather than actually affecting people's lives.
I was actually reading Urdhiti Rai's Listening to Grasshopper. And in that book, she portrays what happened to Afzal Guru, and how the narrative of Afzal Guru was built, and how successive governments, both the BJP government or NDA government and UPA government, ran with it, and how the spectacle created around it by these progressive voices, the Barkhadots of the world, or any such the Outlook magazine and all those progressive magazines. And if you read it, you would not feel their conduct was completely different from the conduct of Arnab Goswami during the whole JNU thing. So all of us, the people who come from progressive, or they claim to come from the progressive world or the world of progressive ideas, there is a hypocrisy in all of us too. And there are, maybe I would not have actually realized it if I would not have read her writing, Arundhati Roy's Listening to Grasshopper. And I was completely unaware of the events that followed during Afzal Guru's conviction, or his hanging. So we were always blind towards this hatred in our society, because it was not affecting us directly. So I completely agree with NKJ with his observation.
I want to preface my upcoming rant with some disclaimer. I am not a very politically articulate person. I don't follow the news a lot. I have very surface level ideas of what's going on. I have a very simple reason for this, but it's a reason that's shifted, and it's currently also shifting. I used to not care because it made me, well, I didn't care about the world around me growing up. I used to just rely on opinions of people and what behaviors were being displayed by elders in my families. Not that I came from a very what do you say, like a right-wing background or anything. I don't. But there is definitely, it's a very conservative sort of upbringing. I had conservative, quote unquote, timid upbringing that is confused with middle class mentality as well. Ki, don't ruffle any feathers, try to get by kind of thing. And it still haunts me on a day-to-day basis. Even today, I have to struggle to get out of that. It used to make me, well, it started making me uncomfortable when I started reading about it. So I started ignoring it or avoiding it rather. And now, for the very same reason, because it makes me uncomfortable, I've started reading news and see how it affects people, not necessarily me, because I don't live in the same country that I'm reading about, but it does affect uh, the common man and the people. So given all of that, I am not a very articulate person when it comes to these sorts of informed opinions. Mine is an opinion based on what just I know and what I see on a very basic level. So I just want to tell you that I'm not as articulated as the people who've come before me or will come after me. Uh, I grew up in a middle class background. I would say, yeah, privileged to quite to decent extent. I have seen much more privileged people than I, but I know I have a, quite some privilege compared to the people that I have seen as well. So, given all of that, again, was raised in a quote unquote timid, conservative, middle class family. I'm an only child, so I had that privilege as well. I didn't have to share a lot of resources, but I wasn't shy of sharing resources either. But I uh, I remember feeling uncomfortable about certain jokes, about certain accepted forms of discrimination, which I later learned were racism. I also partook in some of them growing up because I thought that was an idea of being funny. Um, uh, and only after I had an opportunity to leave India and study abroad did I realize how messed up all of that is. The optics changed, and I understood how, not understood, I realized initially how discriminatory even words or attitudes can be, even be at surface level, or not intentionally malicious, but uh, just the fact that you care to say those things maybe builds an opinion about someone. I don't want to bring up any examples particularly, but we lived next to a Punjabi family, a Sikh family rather, and there were these uncomfortable jokes that were being made about them for no reason. It's just that we grew up in an environment, my cousins and I, we grew up in an environment where it was okay to say certain things about certain people based on who they were, just feeding the stereotype for no reason, right? And the moment someone made a comment in retort or retorted to us for the same reason, or made certain jokes about South Indians, um, we would get all we would get defensive or all up in arms about that, instead of saying that if you can dish it out, you should be able to take it. um, Not that either of those things are acceptable, it's just that you're reducing someone. We failed to understand, our elders as well as us at the time, we failed to understand that we were reducing someone to uh, something that they had no control over, or and even without that, there was no need to poke fun for someone, at someone for who they were, be it a visible minority or be it or the minority of an orientation, be it a gay person or whatever, right? So we were making fun of all these things, not realizing what effect that would have on us as well as on them. We were doing it behind their backs, not that we were saying it to their faces either, but we were doing it behind their backs, and then having no integrity and treating them like, oh, tum to hamare dost or whatever. So this kept going on and on and on. And yeah, and the moment I left India, I realized, I realized whatever, that this is just messed up. There's so many accepted forms of discrimination in India. People don't see it for what it is. And the moment you tell someone who's quote unquote patriotic that hey भाई इंडिया में प्रॉब्लम है ये क्यों नहीं, तो वो बोलते कि तुम इधर बैठ के बोल सकते हो, why don't you go back home and get into politics and try to change it. Like just because I'm pointing out a flaw does not mean that I want to get into the game and change it. You've at least got to accept that there's flaws. The moment you get to that, then it becomes like flaws कौन से देश में नहीं है, like can you stop this whataboutism and just accept the simple objective truth that हाँ भाई the country that you grew up in has flaws, regardless of where you are pointing out those flaws from. Geography does not make a difference. It shouldn't. An opinion of someone who's faced it, who's seen it happen right in front of you, how can you deny that? So there's a lot of gaslighting that happens with people who move away from India as well. These what we've come to know as the NRI, right? जो बाहर बैठ के भी इंडिया गुणगान करते रहते हैं, बट जाना नहीं है उनको वापस. They don't want to live in the country. They just want to say everything good about it and just deny that people who don't have that there is a lack of privilege after a certain level, that there is casteism, there's different forms of discrimination. Like it's just ridiculous how much division there is. जब skin color तो एक बात है, last names, skin colors ले लो, चलो भी language ले लो, even the fucking city that you're born in or that you hail from, all of these forms of discrimination or like differentiation have just become weaponized. It's become mainstream to hate. So much so that there's fucking movies been made on just spreading opinions and one-sided stories just for making money. I really don't know how it gets any better before it gets much worse from here. Before I moved to the US, I used to not resonate a lot with the point of India that I was seeing anyways. I didn't resonate with that country. I'm like, this is not equal for anybody. We are not quote unquote a secular nation by any means. We are tolerant. They are a majority Hindu country that is tolerant of other religions. And it made no sense then. It makes even lesser sense now. Back then, I didn't interact a lot with people who were from who were outside of, there's few people that I interacted that were not South Indian or were not Hindu or or even Muslim. Like I had classmates who were Muslim. I was friends with them to a surface level. Not that I hung out with them a lot, but I didn't have any like discriminatory or any such notions about them as a people. Not that I'm aware of. However, given all of that, I didn't relate to the country that I was living in or that I was born in. And as I moved out, I related lesser and lesser. I also started ignoring news because it made me very uncomfortable. My partner is very into the news. She follows Indian news very much. We have family back home. Not that our privilege is going to get affected anytime soon. A part of the majority, we are a Hindu family, so it's not going to get affected. But it still bothers me that people still deny what is actually going on. I have friends who I grew up with, who I went to school with, who are, who I used to hang out with quite a lot, who have made their identity completely just politicized. They won't necessarily say it all the time, but I hear it. I hear undercurrents. I see WhatsApp forwards and even like long ass typed out messages which are filled with either thinly veiled racism or outright communal hatred, or saying कि ये तो ऐसे ही होते हैं, ये तो वैसे ही होते हैं. I don't see anywhere. I don't see it getting any better just because another person gets elected. It will get worse before it gets any better. It has to get worse, and people have to see the truth, the objective truth for what it is, before justifying why it happened. I have cousins in the US who have said ki haan, this was 2014. I've been anti-Modi ever since the riots thing happened, and there was all the sting operation and all of that, when people have actually readily said कि हमको ये बंदे ने फोन करके बोला कि जाके लूटो, मारो, कूटो, whatever. The whole stuff that Rana Yuga has written a book on. I will never support anybody who's that right wing. इतना बड़ा right wing nut job को तो कोई भी support नहीं कभी support नहीं करूँ मैं. So when I raised this point कि हाँ भाई, like how would, like, so my cousin told me that sometimes देश के विकास के लिए ऐसा करना पड़ता है. There are certain things you've got to accept. Said, how would you feel if this was just flipped flipped the other way around. If this was person of another religion and someone from your religion got murdered just for उनका political ladder climbing के लिए तुम्हारे साथ ऐसा हो रहा, how would you feel? He had no answer. And I have friends who have had these conversations with as well. They just refuse to accept flat thoughts. They just flat facts. They just refuse to accept flat facts. And then it becomes कि मैं अपना माथा क्यों फोड़ूं इनके साथ? Why would I talk to them? Not that I don't want to engage in a conversation like that, but बोल के फायदा ही नहीं. It's like talking to a wall. They are saying just what they are saying without even listening to the flat fact. Like I have a friend whose wife has told me कि हाँ हिंदू खतरे में है. Actually है. I'm like, how the fuck can you say that? Majority of the country is Hindu. तुम कहाँ के खतरे की बात कर रही हो? किधर खतरे में है कोई? I don't understand this. Yeah, my rant is over. Sorry, before I say that, one last thing. Again, growing up, anyone who had money or anyone who was quote unquote a manager in a company or whatever, उनको respect दिया जाता था for no reason. And not that whether they were coming from a place of informed opinions or not. People just respected what people said flat out because they were coming. So India में वो always रहा है, respect that babu, sort of जिसको position होता है society में. So it's just become worse now. People who have made money, they are being respected. Their opinions are taken as informed opinions. For fuck's sake, there's no reason to, like, people don't think कि हाँ भाई critical thinking जरूरी है. कोई बकचोदी कर रहा है just because वो एक अलग लेवल पे है, उसको like he's a manager in a company or whatever, या फिर whatever, just because उसका पैसा does not make that guy informed, intelligent or worthy of your time. ये people forget कि भाई critical thinking को खुद का thinking लगाओ. Just because you Google search does not mean you did any research. बहनचोद बंद करो ये बकवास. So like I don't know. All of this is just this is all deep and like ingrained. Politics has nothing to do with it. Although like hating, misinformation, all of this just forwarding because you can has become the norm instead of like questioning what you're seeing on the internet also. Just because you read it on a website does not mean it's credible. How much have you actually like अगर तुमको कुछ curious कर रहा है, have you really dug into it? Surface level पे पढ़ के तुमने हाँ मैंने इधर पढ़ के भेज दिया भाई, that could be a fucking ad, a Google ad for all you know. How do you know it's the truth or a fact even? Like, yeah, rant over. Thank you for giving me the time. I don't want to take any time from anybody else. Thank you.
Aditya, you said that you are living outside India.
Yeah.
I have a question very specific to that. Like, I have a feeling that when this Modi loving Indian Indians, when they interact with the white folks, they try to project India in a different light. Like India में तो आजकल बहुत सब कुछ एकदम सही है. बैंगलोर में तो आपको लंदन से ज्यादा सैलरी मिलेगा. This is the projection they wanted to make. Now, what I have seen, the white people, they listen because out of courtesy they listen and they agree with them. But when they are not around, they actually laugh it off. It's not like the white folks do not see it for what we are. But like, have you also had the same experiences?
Not exactly like that, but there's been cases हाँ people say कि हाँ भाई लोगों के पास तो बहुत पैसा है, so that makes everything okay. I'm like, are you serious? कौन से लोगों के पास पैसा? It's the same people who used to have money, they have just become richer. There are more like people now in the middle class, like quote unquote upper middle class, like lower middle class तो डूबे जा रहा है in debt and whatever, right? So there's no such coloring of, there's no such nuance in those statements कि हाँ भाई इंडिया में पैसा है. Yes, there's a lot more startup companies, but how many of them are actually failing? उसके बारे में भी बात करो. कौन actually पैसा बना रहा है? IT में ही सबसे ज्यादा पैसा बन रहा है. Maybe some other fields. Outside of that, what? Bangalore में हाँ बहुत पैसा मिलेगा. And what? You're spending so much of your time in fucking traffic. 40 मिनट like जाने के लिए 40 मिनट के डिस्टेंस जाने के लिए तुमको 2.5 घंटे लग रहे हैं. You think that's okay? In a country where you're making a lot of money, what the fuck is the point of that money? मैं जब बॉम्बे गया after 7 years in the US, मैं जब बॉम्बे गया, I was shocked to see how many cars were on the roads. Number of roads नहीं बढ़े हैं, बस cars बढ़े हैं. People are in traffic, AC वगैरह on करके बस traffic में बैठे हुए हैं. No one talks about this shit. It's so fucking annoying. I don't understand it. भाई हाँ ठीक है, a lot more people can afford cars. Sure, good. But what about the comfort that the car is getting them? You're just in traffic all this time. राइट? ये सब बातें कोई करता नहीं. जब करते हो तो लोग, आई ट्राइड डूइंग दिस वंस in a conversation, like someone said कि हाँ भाई मुंबई में या बैंगलोर में और in any other metropolitan city in India, हाँ भी पैसा मिल रहा है, so you know the economics is much better. मैं बोला economics is much better, क्या क्या कर लोगे तुम इतना पैसा बना के, और किसको मिल रहा है इतना पैसा? It's not everybody is making the same amount of money. रेंट भी बढ़ रहा है. Everything else is also becoming expensive. There's not a proportional growth in this in on same sides, right? And it's not everybody who's making the money. IT में बहुत ज्यादा पैसा आ रहा है, sure, but not everybody is in IT. Not everybody wants to be in IT. बाकी लोगों का क्या? And then the like, unemployment का भी बात नहीं, कोई कर नहीं रहा है, sure. So these are things people forget to bring into the conversation when they talk about India. मैं तो I have always told my friends, if you ever travel to India, make sure you have someone you trust locally who can take you around. Do not go by yourself. You will get fleeced like there's no tomorrow. मैंने बोल के रखा हुआ, तुमको लूटेंगे उन लोग. They'll always overcharge you for stuff that doesn't need to be. You will spend all your money on basically nothing. So I've told this to people. It's not safe for you to travel by yourself. Why tell them a lie?
Yeah, true. And what I feel that people, so many of these people who try to project India in a different color, it's not like the person you are talking this, or the person you are trying to convince, he is not naive. He has seen world a little bit more than you, and he knows you for what you are. Because I have this conversation from someone who is from Netherlands. It's like he's like some 10 to 15 years senior to me, and he said this me, I still remember, it's like quite fresh in my memory. He said, like, here when you come outside India, you should learn to say no to your manager, because I know in India you have caste system and you don't know how to say no to your managers. So people outside India also know us for whatever wrong we are actually perpetuating, and unlike us, they also read about history, and read about the people they are interacting with. So they know us for what we are, of our flaws, of our, even if we are doing something good.
Roy ki sare books, if you read, there's this one book she has written about dams. That is also very informative. Yeah, so I'll recommend every book of Arundhati Roy. I will add something, not a book, but I think since PR and marketing, this has become so much ingrained into Indian politics today. I think it will be great if people would read more on PR and marketing and understand how they are being manipulated. I don't remember any specific book. I think there's this book called The Crowd, and you have already mentioned manufacturing consent. But apart from that, just Googling about PR and marketing and understanding, probably if people have time, they can read textbooks on it or research articles on it and understand how everything is so manufactured and how our brains are being completely manipulated, hijacked by these people.
There is a 2014 book by Shivam Shankar Singh, How to Win an Election. In
Yes.
that, he has written, he worked with the Modi campaign in Northeast. So that is how he has explained in how the PR was generated for Modi, and the years he worked with, closely worked with the big wigs of RSS and BJP. He has given quite information on in that book. And his second book is also good, Alternative Reality, which shows how alternate reality is created and people are made to believe things. Those two books, I think, in Indian context, would give a good window to the elections in India. Uh, I started reading more after 2014 when I was retired. Not before that. I mean, when I was young, I used to read anything, whichever book comes to me. But after retirement, 2014, I was more into the Hindutva books, the RSS books. I have read more into that. And now since I have started working again uh, this year, so I now get less time to read. But I make it a point to early mornings, late nights, ऐसा. Those are the times I take time to read the books. But it takes me a lot of time, and Vatsal also helps me a lot because I go, I read all the footnotes also. I ask Vatsal to give me some papers on that.
डिलीवरी का काम है मेरा बस.
आपको पता नहीं है, इंडिया में मॉल में सबसे, अगर आप बेंगलोर में किसी क्या क्रॉस हुआ क्या कुछ ऐसा किताब की दुकान में जाओ, तो सबसे पहले आपको देखेगा मेन कैंप, सबसे पहले, मतलब
Everywhere.
एवरीवेयर.
Yeah. Even in airports and everywhere.
या मुझे इतना when like I came from a very like small town, और तब मुझे बेंगलुरु में गया मैं मॉल पे, तो देखा कि कैसे अंग्रेजी किताबों के दुकान कैसे होते हैं, और मुझे जब वो किताब देखा इतना ओपन डिस्प्ले में, तब मुझे मतलब नाउ आई शुड हैव अंडरस्टूड दैट द पाथ इंडिया इज टेकिंग।
वन ऑफ द साइंस। ऑलराइट देन, तो खत्म किया जाए आज की बैठक। वाज अ हेवी कॉन्वर्सेशन बट इट वाज अ ग्रेट कॉन्वर्सेशन।
जय श्री मात्सल्ला बोल दो।
जय श्री मात्सल्ला।
Long years ago, we made a trip with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge.
8 नवंबर 2016 की रात्रि को 12 बजे से
चीफ मिनिस्टर के लिए मेरा एक ही संदेश है कि वो राज धर्म का पालन करें।
हार्डवेयर वालों की सोच क्या होती है, हार्ड वर्क वालों की सोच क्या होती है।
अरे ये ना पंजाब की खुशबू।